Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, Halloween week. I love it. I know everybody probably celebrated on Saturday, but a lot of people are going to probably have some Thursday night parties as well, and certainly during the day, trick-or-treating. I hope you have a blast with your kids. Don't soap up windows if you're one of the teenagers that feel like you're in your rowdy years and stuff like that. Be mindful of your neighbors. Be nice. Make an effort. Halloween's a blast, and I don't understand the people that don't like the fact that adults still celebrate it. It's fun. Questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com. Best to reach me there, not private messages on Facebook or Twitter. That's the place to reach me if you want me to critique your book or if you have questions or comments about the show, john@wordballoon.com. Thanks a lot for listening through the commercials. I greatly appreciate it. There's one more spot left, and then we will get to the show. But as always, thank you for your attention and patronage. We'll be back after this last spot. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. It's another weird balloon because it's the holiday season, and who better to represent Halloween if there's ever a candidacy for the Great Pumpkin, and I understand SNL fans might want to nominate David Pumpkins because it's such a great bit that Tom Hanks and crew came up with for SNL a couple of years ago. I'm always laughing when I see people dressed up as David Pumpkins. It's like cute, but I don't know, man. For me and my money, it'll always be Svengoolie. Rich Coase, Chicago's very own. What a great career. He's celebrating his 40th anniversary of being Svengoolie, and sadly, I am old enough to remember when he took over as the son of Svengoolie in 1979. I was, 14 years old. Perfect age to enjoy Svengoolie. Although I was already a fan of his predecessor, the original Svengoolie. Rich was originally the son of Svengoolie because we all had long memories back in 79. It wasn't that long ago. It was earlier in the 70s when Jerry G. Bishop was the original Svengoolie. We talk about that. We get into great detail of behind-the-scenes stuff, of how he puts the show together, all the great factoids that he gives us and stuff. This was all done before his C2E2 panel back in 2018, which I was incredibly honored to moderate. It was hilarious. Dan DiDio of DC Comics was in the audience. They are celebrating DC Comics' Sven's 40th anniversary with a Svengoolie DC Universe one-shot that's going to be coming out this week. Fantastic, perfect timing. Sadly, I will not be able to talk to Rich until after his busy season. He's like Santa Claus, man. He always does horror conventions and so many public appearances leading up to Halloween. It's like asking Santa to do something in December. I get it. So I wanted to present this. I also have for you the panel that we did at C2E2. Now, I didn't release it initially because I always have trouble with the sound system at C2E2 at McCormick Place in Chicago. All their sound system equipment is built into the walls. So I really, there are speakers that are above, and I really should just have somebody record from the audience. I have no idea what the best result is because I can't get to their sound system to plug in directly to it, and the microphones always interfere with my portable recorder. So there's a little bit of a whine on there. It may be kind of intolerable for you to listen to, and I totally understand if you're sensitive to high frequencies, like a dog, like Crypto, the super dog. But no, honestly, I wanted to share it because it was a lot of fun, and Rich was terrific with the audience. But really, again, I give you a good full hour of Rich completely clean, on the phone. He's on the phone, I'm on Skype. And we had a great conversation just in general. Some of the stuff is covered in the C2E2 panel, but also, people were asking great questions. So I wanted to present that as well. I do intend to talk to Sven before the end of the year because A, I'm such a fan, B, I want to acknowledge his 40th anniversary. And it's just been such an honor that he's become this nice acquaintance. I mean, he even checked up on me when I was stuck in the hospital. And he's like, John, what the hell happened? And it blew me away. I'm like, oh my God, Svengoolie wants to know if I'm okay. So that was great, man. And it really, his radio career and my radio career had a lot of similarities. And as I tell him in the first hour, man, I really was hoping when I was in college and high school that radio would still be the vibrant place for audio comedy. I mean, there were so many great people doing sketch comedy on the radio. Unbelievable. And thankfully now with, the digital platform and YouTube and everything like that, it can happen again. But, man, I'll tell you, there was a big dry period where that just wasn't happening. And when I got in sports radio, I wanted to be somebody doing the song parodies and the crazy bits, just like Sven was doing on his monster movie show. So it's a great show. You all know Svengoolie on MeTV. Such a wonderful show, and perfect for Halloween, and perfect for Weird Balloon. So I wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Svengoolie. We'll do it again later this year, but give you the best of my conversations with Rich Coase on today's Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. October is closing out, and I thank you, League, for your great support via Patreon. The subscriptions, they mean a lot. You're helping keep the lights on here at Word Balloon Central, and that's no lie. I mean, like I've said, man, radio is a fickle business, and it's been tough getting a full-time job. I've got a nice part-time job, but every now and then the hours tighten up. And I thank you for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners, via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. That's where you can go directly to our Patreon page, or you can go to wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. Is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month to you? If you think so, and if you can swing it, I appreciate the support. Thank you greatly, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. This is an excellent month for Aftershock Comics. Have you been paying attention this month to all the great stuff that's been coming out from Aftershock Comics? Things like issue 24 of Animosity with Marguerite Bennett, the Volume 2 graphic collection of Garth Ennis and Gordon Suzutska's Walk Through Hell, Volume 2, The Cathedral. You've got Juan Doe's Bad Reception, Issue 3. Tim Seeley's Dark Red, number 7 is out. Also, Cullen Bunn and Juan Doe's Dark Arc After the Flood is back. And it debuted again with a new number 1 and a new story arc. There is Marguerite Bennett's graphic novel Horde, a 72-page graphic novel from Aftershock. Pretty neat stuff there. Jimmy's Bastards, the complete collection, one of my favorite series that Aftershock picked up and kept going. Garth Ennis and Russ Braun, tremendous stuff there. Killer Groove wrapped up with Ollie Masters and Owen Marin. Also Knights Temporal, number 4 from Cullen Bunn. And, the first collection of The Last Space Race is also available from Aftershock Comics. So there's a good combination of horror and science fiction and adventure and comedy in Jimmy's Bastards. Really great books from Aftershock. Great creators, great team-ups, and wonderful collections and ongoing series that deserve your attention. We'll be talking to more Aftershock creators. We talked to Tim Seeley just a couple days ago about Dark Red and other things going on in Tim's career. But you don't have to wait. You can go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on their books, how to order them through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, let's get into it now, man. My first part of this Word Balloon with Rich Coase, the great Svengoolie, a great introduction, and it was a preview of his 2018 C2E2 panel appearance in the spring of 2018. And then after that, I'll be back to set up the panel itself from C2E2. But a celebration, his 40th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Rich Coase, Svengoolie, on today's Word Balloon. Rich Coase, a.k.a. Svengoolie. It's a pleasure to have you on Word Balloon, man. Welcome.
Thank you, John, and thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. I'm often called Coase.
Well, I'm an old Coase Zone viewer, so hey, man, I'll be honest. I go back to the Jerry G. Bishop days.
Cool.
Absolutely, man. So, no, I'm really excited about our panel at C2E2 coming up, and great opportunity today to warm the Word Balloon audience up and, get a few more converts to fill the room. You have no problem filling a room, Rich. I have seen you in action at autograph sessions and other live appearances, and I am so glad that you are the Chicago institution that you are.
Well, that's really nice of you to say, John. And, I do worry that, we'll get up there to do that panel and we'll have 4 guys there and 2 of them will be janitors. But it's very cool. And it's just amazing to me that now, since we're national, I hear from these people all over the country who are into the show now. And it really blows me away.
Understood. And you represent that original generation of television viewers that got a local horror host. I wonder, because you're like, maybe 10 years or so older than me. So growing up, the everyone or some geeks may know that when Universal put together a syndication package of the classic 30s and 40s horror movies and stuff, that's really when the horror host phenomena really began.
Exactly. In the 50s, they put together a whole package that they called the Shock Package, which is why in so many different cities around the country there was a show called Shock Theater, because they just adapted that, and they ran all the Universal stuff, and starting, I guess, with Vampira out on the West Coast and Zachary over on the East Coast, and here in Chicago we had Terry Bennett as Marvin. Those were like the main three people that started the whole trend.
And Marvin was an alien, or what was Marvin?
No, actually, he was like a beatnik ghoul, sort of.
Oh, wow.
He had his own band. Yeah, he had his own band and everything. It was a very cool thing. I was pretty young at the time, so I didn't always get to stay up late, and I only saw his show, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times when we were visiting relatives, and it was okay to be up that late.
I understand. Well, and I grew up watching Svengoolie. I was born in 1964, and I was a little kid, trying to stay up late on a Friday night or Saturday night. And, the original Svengoolie, of course, originally you were the son of Svengoolie. The older listeners might know that. But, tell us about the first Svengoolie.
The first Svengoolie was a very talented man, Jerry G. Bishop, who I was in, junior high when I first heard him. And he was a disc jockey and did mornings on WCFL. Very funny, very quick-witted guy. I loved the stuff that he did, and his sense of humor was kind of close to mine anyway. And he also ended up working at WFLD at kind of the same time and became a staff announcer there and did various programs. And he just happened to be the staff announcer on duty, because at that time they had live staff announcers all the time. And he was the one on duty Friday nights when they were running the horror movies. And when he did the announcements, he started goofing around and doing an accent and adding in more jokes and such in the announcements he was doing, and developed that into his Svengoolie character.
And I remember the original Svengoolie, the first Svengoolie, because you're an original on your own, obviously, and it certainly made it your own. But he was like a ghoul hippie, as I remember, right? Didn't he have a headband and long hair and white face and everything?
Yes. Yeah, he had a headband. He had long green hair, and his mustache and goatee were green. He wore a sweatshirt and these god awful red, white, and blue striped bell bottom pants. And he could play the guitar, and he would do little song things. So that's why he enlisted me to write song parodies for him. And it went from, at first it was just the voiceover announcements. Then they shot still pictures of him on slides that they would use, to go with his voiceovers. And eventually the show was done on videotape, and was, the video inserts in between parts of the movie.
Wow, that's amazing, because, I remember it being on video. I didn't realize the life it had prior to going on videotape. That's amazing. There are a couple clips of his stuff, right, on YouTube? Isn't there a little bit out there?
Yeah, you can find some. Unfortunately, there weren't too many tapes of his shows that survived from that era. And, you can find stuff, most definitely. And it's funny when I see some of it, and I remember, hey, I wrote that.
That's fantastic.
Because at the time, the way I got involved was I was just a fan of his, like I said, from his radio work, and then when he was doing that, and he started reading jokes that people sent in, and so I'd send him some stuff, and he appreciated it, and he found out that at the time I was a college student and studying broadcasting, so he got me more involved. He would start to assign me specific things, like, can you make a parody of such and such a commercial or whatever? And then brought me in. I was doing off-camera voices for him, and eventually was working with him on the show every week. And after that was canceled, and he was on WMAQ radio, I was his producer, quote, sidekick, and I was about maybe 80% of the people that he interviewed on the phone being different people.
That's excellent. I know Phil Hendry has continued that tradition. He was doing it in the 90s and still does that now online, having fake guests and those kinds of shtick. That's a great thing, Rich. You grew up with sketch comedy on radio, and certainly it even obviously goes back to people like Bob and Ray and even earlier than that. But I love, and also the fact that you get to be a local television entertainer. And there are so few jobs like that left. And it's so fantastic that you're doing it here in Chicago, but also now with the syndication thing that people really know who you are and really appreciate your comedy.
Yeah, it's nice because, as you know now, with TV, mostly it's news, public affairs, sports, and the occasional, sort of talk show or something like Windy City Live or something like that. And that's it. Nobody does real flat-out entertainment-type stuff. And I'm very fortunate to be working at a place where my boss, Neil Saban, really appreciates that. That's the kind of stuff he grew up on and always loved. And that was one of the reasons why he brought me into this broadcasting company, because he enjoyed that kind of stuff and he liked what I did. And felt that it had a place. And since, MeTV that we're on now is memorable entertainment television, it's TV shows that people always used to love watching. And, part of that is the hosted type shows that really don't exist that much anymore. That's another memorable type of entertainment on TV that people really enjoy.
Well, yeah, and you get to present not only the classic horror films, but also a lot of the great schlock that came out in the 60s and 70s with kind of familiar faces, Forrest Tucker from F Troop and William Shatner and DeForest Kelley from Star Trek popping up in horror films. So it's doubly good that it's, kind of not only a silly, poorly made horror film or sci-fi film, but, you get to see, Jack Palance in a sci-fi film, something crazy like that.
Yeah, there's such a wide range of actors and actresses that have shown up in these movies. It just recently we showed Ants, which was a made-for-TV 70s movie.
Uh-huh.
And, people like Linda Day George and Suzanne Summers are in there. You get to see these things, and at times it's not like it's their most impressive sort of appearance. But, even in some of the stuff that we consider semi-classics now, like The Blob,
yes.
That was early Steve McQueen.
True. No question.
And then, you get to see him, as in the words of Ed Norton, you get to see him on the way up and on the way down. Same thing happens in the sewer.
Absolutely. Well, and, I wondered, because obviously you guys lean into a lot of the B movies that were made and things like that. But now there is that other, group of films that were big budget films in their day and kind of do look corny and are certainly part of pop culture parody. Things like Fantastic Voyage or the original Westworld. Would those be movies that you guys would shoot for? Are they too expensive to get? Where do they fall as possible fodder for your show?
A lot of that stuff isn't available to us just because it's already under exclusive contract to a different network or company at this time.
Okay.
If we could get them, sure, we would do them, that kind of stuff. We do try to keep it pretty much rated PG for the most part, since that's part of the whole idea of MeTV.
Sure.
And we don't want to get anything that's too upsetting. And a lot of times when I'm doing these movies, if there is something that might be a little upsetting to people, I'll make sure that I put a warning in. And there are people who go, "Oh, why are you warning people? It's a horror movie." But I know there are people, families that watch, and they have kids there. And, you might want to just know that so you can use some parental discretion as to whether or not you should watch the next scene.
Yeah, as opposed to some of the 60s and 70s Italian horror that we got on TV, on local TV back in the 70s or 80s and stuff. And yeah, I understand. You don't want to traumatize little kids. And I know for a fact, anecdotally, a lot of friends who watch the show with their kids. And in fact, some of the comic book creators that are coming to C2E2, I let them know that I was going to be talking to you. And they're like, "Oh my God, me and my kid watch it every week. Of course we know who Svengoolie is." So, yeah, I get it. And that's great. And also, I love how educational your show is, too. And that you really do spend some of those interstitial moments in between the film where you do come on and go, "All right, that character actor, they also did X, Y, and Z." Or you might recognize Gail Gordon from, whatever. Stuff like that. And I love that you do that. Being an old movie fan, and clearly I'm glad the show reflects that not only are you having fun with the movies, but really honoring this stuff and pointing out the gold that's in between the schlock.
Oh, sure. And, one thing, just like you, I'm a fan of old movies and old TV shows. And how many times do you see somebody and you think, I know this guy, but I don't know where I know him from? So we try to fill in that information for the viewers so that they know, oh, yeah, that's the guy who used to be in F Troop or whatever.
Absolutely, man. That's great. I want to ask, because you're at, I know you do horror conventions as well as full-on Comic Cons. Were you a comic book reader when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. I still have my, era 1963-64 DC comics at home.
That's great.
And the thing is, I never used to keep them in the plastic bags with the backing papers or anything.
Sure.
Basically, I read them, and I reread them, and, they're not going to be, quality graded, certainly. But I always have told people that that's also, I think, one of the ways I learned about writing. Because, you could see with the stories, most of them had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you learn little devices about writing from them. And then, of course, when I got into the Marvel stuff as well, it's like, here's these continuing stories that had these story arcs that went in different directions, but still came together from issue to issue. And, I was always a very big fan of stuff. I was very pleased to find out that George Perez is a fan of mine.
Oh, that's great.
And of course, Alex Ross is a real good friend. And he used to watch me when he would come into town during the summers as a kid to spend summers with his grandmother. And we just happened to have somebody that we both knew that kind of put us together, and it was very cool to find out that he was a fan as well.
That's excellent. Do you still read any comics today?
Oh, yeah. I can't keep up with them at this point just because I've got so much going on.
Sure.
But I do, yeah. I enjoy reading comics, and I get a little confused sometimes because the characters have changed from what they were back when I first was reading them.
Sure.
And since I haven't been reading steadily, it's like, wait a minute, when did he become black?
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I remember when Nick Fury was white.
Yeah, they just finally kind of cleaned up that continuity and put old Nick Fury in a different position now in the Marvel Universe so that Samuel L. Jackson-looking younger Nick Fury can take his comic book place. And, that was a big boost. Having Samuel L., all of a sudden everybody loved Nick Fury again. It was pretty cool. I agree. I was an old Nick Fury fan as well because he came from that super spy Man from U.N.C.L.E. era that even in the 70s, we were still all excited about. Oh, and that reminded me, because I noticed, mostly on the show, it's either horror films or sci-fi films. Would you ever do like a goofy Western or a great, secret agent, a schlocky secret agent movie?
Oh, sure. We did a sort of Son of Hercules type movie.
Oh, fantastic.
That I think we'll rerun this summer. Yeah, and of course there is that vampire Western, that Curse of the Undead. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where the gunslinger is actually a vampire. And he actually most of the time comes off as a kind of nice guy, which is weird.
Is that from the 50s or the 60s?
It's 50s, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, black and white, and it's pretty amusing.
And that was another thing. Like, I know that there are people that are out there making, obviously, schlocky movies. In the 80s, we had, like, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, certainly. But even now, I know people that are making, like, kind of fun, purposely goofy infestation movies or whatever kind of, rubber suit monster movies for the fun of it and stuff. Have you encountered... Do you guys look beyond a certain era range when you are looking for stuff? I know you said you want to look for stuff that's PG-friendly, obviously, too.
Well, for the most part, yeah, we've had contracts with Universal and Sony Columbia,
okay,
and Shout Factory, and mainly we haven't gone into anything too modern, obviously, because there's a little more objectionable stuff in it, and also there's a certain quality that we want to maintain if we can. It's kind of tough sometimes, especially when you don't have people who are represented by a distributor that our company deals with or something. So that's kind of like we've stayed with these kind of more mainstream type movies.
Well, and that makes more sense too, because obviously Weigel Beyond Me TV has other channels, and yeah, maybe they're showing the MGM-A pictures, just as a regular movie block, and then all right, well, let's go through the MGM library and do a Tom Thumb or whatever. One of them or God, a few weeks ago, the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. I was so glad you guys did that. That was great.
Yes, at least you were. There were several viewers who did not take kindly to it, and who really just were like, "What is this? Why are you showing this?" And of course, the ever popular, "I am never going to watch your program again. P.S. Please send me an autograph." So, yeah, that was an unusual one. We wanted to show it because it really is kind of a cult film. And we thought that people would find it amusing. There was a certain sector of our audience, let us say, that did not. And it made me glad that we did some editing on it, because if we would have left in some of the other stuff... Well, first of all, it was an extremely long movie for our time slot.
Understood. And
we had to do some edits on it. But if I left all the long-range songs and such in it, there probably would be people coming here like a scene from a Frankenstein movie with the torches burning coming to get me.
I understand. Absolutely, man. Well, and that really surprises me because, yeah, it's got that weird 50s fantasy, This Island Earth is a pure sci-fi thing, but that's the thing. I think you can put that next to a movie like that, and that really surprises me that people had that reaction, because it's such a great, weird movie that, yeah, it's not sci-fi. It's not horror. Although it is obviously like kind of a tortured dream for a kid, and yeah, it's got that Santa Claus versus the Martians kind of weird, what the hell's going on appeal.
Sure, but you see, I think we have some people who watch us who have a very narrow viewpoint, and if it isn't exactly the type of movie that they want, they're not happy. There are people who complain when we run Godzilla movies.
Interesting.
And people who complain when we run the Universal classics, like, "Oh, not this again." And it's like, my God, these are the Frankenstein movies.
Yeah, man.
Come on.
Well, and I wonder. Go on. No, go on, please.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny because we always talk about the fact that, you can never make everybody happy. So, we just have to hope that they'll tolerate the movies that they don't care for as much and stick around for whatever's coming up next.
Well, I think your selections are great, and I would imagine that, yeah, there are like perennials that you almost have to have in there every year. Because I was even thinking about that. It's like, all right, you're on, 52 weeks a year, so yeah, I would think that, yeah, the Universal Classics would be a must. So that doesn't give you that much room to kind of rotate and put in other, films. You've got like 40 or so weeks, maybe 45 weeks that aren't. And yeah, when I think about it, because obviously not just the first Frankenstein movie, but we want everything through Ghost of Frankenstein, or even, I don't even know where Frankenstein 1970, if that's in one of your syndication chains of possible film things, the old Boris Karloff 50s weird movie. Very weird.
Yeah, well, that one was not among ones that we could get. But yeah, we had most of the core, once it started from the 30s going through to the 40s.
Sure.
And same thing with, the Draculas, the House of Dracula, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and, even up to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is such a popular movie. We have to run that at least once a year because people demand it so often. And then, of course, there's that other faction that says, "Oh, you're showing comedy. Why are you showing comedy?" No, like I said, I can't please everybody all the time.
No, I understand. Well, again, I think you succeed. And then also, not just the movies, but I've really been excited that you've had so many guest stars recently as well. Dana Gould just came through, and I know Gilbert Gottfried, when he was in town last year, he came through. And I know you've always had guest stars. I remember when John Pertwee, the third Doctor from Doctor Who, made his appearance on your old show.
Yeah, it's great. And then Gilbert just came by again recently, and it's really nice because, everybody's like, "Oh, Gilbert Gottfried, he must be so terrible." And he is just the nicest guy and very funny. And whenever he comes into town to do stand-up, he makes a point of coming by to do something with us on our show. And it's really a compliment to me because he knows whatever we're taping, he's not going to be able to promote, the appearance he's making in 2 days. That, it doesn't really work as a promotion for him for what he's doing in town, but he still enjoys coming in and doing stuff with us just because he's a fan of the show. And I think that's great, and we've run into so many other people who have ended up, like Dana Gould, who are fans of the program, David Dastmalchian, a really fine actor who was in Ant-Man and was Abracadabra on The Flash.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's tremendous. And he used to, I think when he was in school here, he started watching me and was a big fan. Wow, who else? Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live.
Fantastic.
Will Wheaton, who was last year at C2E2 and was just beside himself, so happy to meet me, which was very cool. And other people, we've run into Malcolm McDowell and Vincent Price's daughter, Victoria Price.
Fantastic.
Jerry the King Lawler is a big fan. And also Mick Foley. So we've got a wide range of people who are fans of ours, and it's a big compliment to me. I'm always really happy to see it. One of the people coming in for C2E2, Mark Shepard, who was Crowley on Supernatural.
Oh, yes.
Turns out he's a fan of the show, too. So I'm looking forward to meeting him and maybe getting to shoot something with him as well.
That's excellent, man. You were nice enough 3 years ago at C2E2. We did an interview right after you had finished your autograph session. And Joel Hodgson of Mystery Science Theater 3000, before we started shooting, is like, hey, I just wanted, and he wanted to shake your hand and say how much of an inspiration you were to Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I know he said something to the effect of, so many of my stand-up comedian friends in L.A. just love you. And again, anecdotally, I've heard the same thing from other comedians as well. And I was just so thrilled that I'm like, Jesus, man, here's this guy. And again, because, especially coming from Chicago and everything, you're a UHF survivor and star. And I mean, and for people who grew up in that, less than 5 channel world, and in Chicago we were lucky, maybe we had 7 channels in the 70s or whatever. But that's the thing, man, and that I'm really glad that you're appreciated for what you do, and by these other really funny people that think you're funny as well.
I know it's amazing to me, and such a compliment, and as well as Joel, Trace Bullio and
Yes.
Frank Conniff.
Yes.
Have become friends with us too,
Oh, that's
and
great.
they even came on the show once, wandered through, and I know they've worn Sven T-shirts when they do some of their public appearance things and riffing, and two terrific, very funny guys, and again, it's such a big compliment. And then in the music world, people like Rob Zombie, who
That's great.
has actually handcrafted his own Svengoolie shirt using parts of ones that we've had. And you probably know about Freddie Cannon, famous 1960s rock and roll artist.
Yeah,
Freddie Boom Boom Cannon.
Palisades
who
Park, yes.
got in touch with us out of nowhere. We didn't even know. And he's like, hey, I wrote a song for you. I watch your show every week and I love it. And my wife said, why don't you write a song about him? So he wrote the Svengoolie Stomp.
Oh, my God.
And just incredible stuff. And people like the Go-Go's Gina Schock, Jim Peterick.
Wow.
It's amazing to me. And the person I always bring up, and I hope he forgives me for bringing him up so often, is Mark Hamill.
Wow.
Okay, and this is a goofy story, and I tell it a lot, so I hope you don't mind if I tell it again.
Please.
He sent me an email just saying, when I was growing up, I was, my dad was in the military, and we traveled around a lot, and I saw a lot of horror hosts, and he said, I've been watching you, and I really think that you're really great, and I really enjoy it, and I'm a big fan, and I'm thinking, this is so cool. And I'm thinking, okay, now, myself, as a bottom feeder celebrity, there are people who pretend to be me. So I'm thinking, okay, this is real flattering, but I was kind of like, well, how do I know this is really you? And he said, well, give me your phone number and I'll call you. And I'm thinking, that would be a smart move if it's not him. So I remembered he had a Twitter account that was, validated. And I said, I tell you what, just put something on Twitter and I'll know it's you. And he said, okay, fine. So I'm waiting and, an hour goes by, nothing, 2 hours, nothing, 3 hours. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're Mark Hamill. And all of a sudden, up comes the thing that says, one of the coolest things I discovered this summer was the Svengoolie program on MeTV. And it was him.
Wow.
I sent him my phone number. He called me. First time we talked, probably about 45 minutes. He's still a big fan of the show, and he keeps saying, he hasn't been back to Chicago in the time that we've been in contact, but he keeps saying, we're going to meet someday. It is our destiny.
Oh,
so I guess it's a Jedi destiny for me now.
That's amazing. Did you ask him about, and forgive me, I'm wondering, because I'd want to know about the Hanna-Barbera voiceover stuff he did back when he was a kid?
Oh, yeah, we talked about that, and especially when he got to work with Joe Besser from the Three Stooges in the Teenage Genie cartoon.
Of course, absolutely. He was Corey. He was like the Major Nelson of that cartoon. Absolutely, man. For people who have never seen Major Genie. But yeah, Joe Besser.
Yes.
And that reminds me.
They're not exactly in high rotation, I don't think.
I know. I'm so bummed. Boomerang, to get all that great 60s and 70s stuff, you have to pay extra. And it's like, come on, man. There's got to be, with the adult love of cartoons that people our age that still love that stuff. It's like, really going to gouge us? Fine. All right. Or just buy the DVDs, obviously. I'm actually talking to Tim Matheson on the podcast in a couple of weeks. And, he
cool.
Not only, of course, Eric Stratton from Animal House, damn glad to meet you, but also was the original Johnny Quest. So I'm excited to be talking to him. But anyway, back to you.
That's terrific.
Oh, thanks, man. No, well, and again, truly, man, you are part of that pantheon lately, where I've been very lucky and happy to talk to people like yourself, Dana Gould, and coming up Tim Matheson. So no, it's a pleasure, and also, it's like you said, getting to meet Mark Hamill and stuff. That's fantastic, and I wondered as a kid, did you ever get a chance? Did any of the horror greats come through town, and did you ever have a chance to meet any of them? Because I know they obviously passed away, likely when you were either still in high school or college.
Yeah, actually, no, I never got the chance to meet any of them. And I wish I could have, certainly.
Sure.
And, there's a whole list of people I wish I could have met, including the Three Stooges. But, I've gotten to meet some of the more modern people, like Robert Englund, who, again,
fantastic.
Turned out to be a fan of the show.
Amazing.
And Lance Henriksen.
Wow. Yes.
And I found out that, outstanding makeup artist Rick Baker is watching the show every week. And I was in touch with him via email, and I just said, wow, well, it's cool. I know you must love the movies. And he said, I have all the movies. I'm watching this because you're on. And it's like, wow. I don't even know how to respond to that.
That's great, man. Well, and again, it's true. We want to watch your spin on these things. And it's, I grew up with creature features along with Svengoolie back in the 70s. So I've seen the Universal Monster movies a million times. But no, I like seeing you comment on them. We love your parody songs. I worked at the Score, the Chicago sports station, and I used to do parody songs for them. And I, honestly, Rich, again, being just, a decade ahead of me and everything, I really, the way broadcasting was in the 70s, especially in my memory, and even into the early 80s, I was really hoping for that kind of sketch radio and that kind of thing. And that's why I've enjoyed talking to people like Phil Proctor from Firesign Theater that, did that kind of radio and that kind of thing. And I know you did it as well, on radio. And then, of course, you're still doing it with Svengoolie, where you're coming up with your skits and you're coming up with your parody songs. And that's terrific and fun. And yeah, it's part of the kitsch that makes the show great.
Yeah, and that was the kind of stuff that I enjoyed when I was growing up, and to be able to do it now and have been doing it and making a living at it, I can't think of anything better than that, other than somebody just dying and sending me $1 million in inheritance or something. But since that's probably not going to happen, I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and the fact that, again, the management here believes in me and likes what I do, which is not always the case, depending on where you worked and some of the places that I've worked. And, to have that kind of support, and then, to be seen all over the country now and have the support of all these people all over the place, it means everything to me. It's tremendous. It's like I always say, I wish this had happened to me when I was younger and had a little more energy and was a little more healthy. But nonetheless, I'll take it now.
I understand, man. Well, and I'm glad you've got a guy like Neil Sabin that believed in you, brought you back, because you had your run as son of Svengoolie from 79 to like the mid-'80s, and then Channel 32 changed hands and went from Field Communications to Fox, and Fox didn't think you were appropriate, I guess, for, continuing the show for a while. So you had your period where you were kind of in the wilderness before coming back with the Co-Zone, and then thankfully back with Svengoolie as well.
Yeah, I always remember when the general manager, when they were changing to Fox, said, yes, well, we just don't think that your show is going to be suitable for a network. And then the Joan Rivers late night show was. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. And a bit of trivia about that. The guy that does all my music stuff, guy I've known since high school, who plays Doug Graves, Doug Sharp, was actually a trumpet player in the band of that late Joan Rivers show.
Oh, that's crazy. That's really wild.
Yeah.
So when you guys, do you guys co-write the songs together then, obviously? A lot of times it is kind of in that great, and forgive me, because again, you predated that weird Al Yankovic style of, let's take a hit and rewrite it. And certainly that's what I was doing with the score and stuff was, wipe out the lyrics and, and this is well before karaoke music became available for me. But, you got Doug. So are you guys writing the songs together?
Basically what happens is I hit upon an idea for a song that will work, and sometimes it's only based on just, one line or one group of words. And I'll just figure out how much of the song we're going to use. I'll let Doug know, and, if he needs an example, I'll find an example of the original tune for him, although he knows most of them. And then I'll just write it, and when he comes in for us to record it, we do like one rehearsal, and then just put it on tape.
That's excellent, man. And again, that's what's great about this show. It has that wonderful homemade quality to it. And I've never been over to your studios. I have friends who've come over, and again, the magic of television. The people that I know that have seen the set, it's like, seriously, man, have you seen how small it is? It like comes out of the wall like a Murphy bed and just kind of pops out, and it's like, here it is.
Yeah, actually, there's been a change in that now. They moved us into a different studio where we can leave the set up all the time, which is good because it takes a lot of the wear and tear out of, literally the walls would fold in and they'd have to, pull a curtain in front of it. But now we get to leave it up all the time.
Well, that's good.
And actually that benefits us quite a bit. And all the lighting is always set and everything, so it's easier for us to just go in and record stuff. But sometime, you'll have to come by, and maybe if you're extra good, we'll let you throw chickens.
Oh, that'd be great, man! Absolutely, the chickens, exactly the staple of the show that goes back to the Jerry G years as well. That's fantastic. Too damn funny. And I have friends who I know have come in line and had you, as I'm sure you've signed thousands of rubber chickens over the years by now.
Yeah, and I've always been amazed that I know so much about rubber chickens and about the different varieties of them and such, and which ones are harder to sign, the ones especially with the little, not goosebumps, I guess chicken bumps, that I have to negotiate around with the pen. The best rubber chickens used to come from Italy, but I don't see too many of those anymore.
That might explain the collapse of the Italian market as we know it today. So,
well, I don't want to brag, but yeah, probably.
That's fantastic. Jesus. I mentioned Hodgson earlier, and again, I guess maybe not. I was going to ask if are you ever concerned that when Mystery Science Theater maybe did a movie or other parody shows, because certainly a lot of other parody shows popped up in the 90s. And, certainly other horror hosts as well. But do you ever worry that, in certain cases, something, they did it the best. We're not going to play with that movie.
No, not really. Because everybody's got different takes on things.
Sure.
And, everybody comes from different directions for the most part. There are certainly, similar senses of humor working there. But, we never really worried about, that we were stepping on somebody else's toes or vice versa. It's like, I always said, and this was even when there were other people doing horror movie host shows locally here that were on, public access and stuff, and they'd always, oh, I'm out to get you, look out, I'm going to steal your viewers. And, my whole thing was, there's room for everybody. Some people are going to like certain shows and some people are not going to like them. And, you just do it. The only person you should be in competition with really is yourself to do the best stuff that you can and the stuff that's going to work. And basically that's it.
Are there, and I'm really glad you have that philosophy, Rich. And truly, as someone that is now middle-aged as well, or at least that I'll claim that, being in their early 50s, it's really great to see that you are succeeding and doing, the kind of show that you want to do, and you've got a platform to do it and an audience that truly does love it. And like you said, you really have to satisfy yourself. That's something I try to do with my own broadcast career and even in this podcast. So I'm glad that you said that. And, there's also a lot of people that listen to the show that are aspiring writers and artists that want to get in the comic book business. I talk to a lot of comic book creators and also filmmakers and television people as well. And yeah, it's great to hear that kind of advice. And yeah, they're looking for that kind of inspiration. So it's great to see that, if you want to keep doing it and you do it well, you're going to find an audience. And I really think that you're proof of that with the show and the show's success.
Well, thanks. And one thing that I always remember is I remember reading an interview with somebody from SCTV, which was always one of my favorite TV shows.
Oh, yeah.
And they said basically what we were doing, we were writing stuff that would make us laugh. And I think I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm writing stuff that I would laugh at or groan at, certainly, and that, will make the guys that I work with laugh. And that's kind of the ground zero testing ground there. It's like, if we find it funny, hopefully people out there are going to as well.
Do you, and I want to ask about the Stooges, but before I do, staying on this tack, are there other kind of media things that you would want to do? You are such a film buff and, amateur film historian. I mean, if I don't know if the television show immediately accredits you or not, but you know what I mean. But like, would you want to do any sort of sitting down and talking about old movies, even whether it's a podcast or some sort of video beyond the platform that you have with Svengoolie?
It'd be fun to do. The thing at this point really is finding the time to do it.
Sure.
Because as we've gone along here, and now, with the whole national show and handling all the social media and everything else, and of course, basically I write the show, I screen the movie when it first comes in and figure out where to break it down into segments, and if something has to be cut, what has to be cut or whatever, and then I help out with the post-production as well. I don't have a heck of a lot of time, and I do like to spend time with my family. So right now, it just seems like the schedule is pretty bland with public appearances as well. There's a lot going on, but yeah, there's a lot of things. I'd still love to do radio again someday. I always had a great time doing radio.
I could tell. No, you're a true broadcaster, man, and it's it definitely comes through. And then again, I can appreciate not having enough time. I know I would love to see you in other capacities because I know you can do it. And again, based on what the time that you do it on the show, so I could see that. How long does it take from hey, we want to do a movie that we've never done before to it get being broadcast ready?
It depends, because a lot of times, while I'm working on the new thing, I'm working on the post-production for the last one we did. And as well as that, then we're checking on reruns that we're going to have coming up and finding out what we have to replace in those. Basically, let's say it's over a 2-week stretch. I would get the movie, I'd screen it, like I said, break it down into, and I take real copious notes on each movie that we do, and I handwrite them in my handwriting, which is mostly legible to me and not too many other people. If you see one of my scripts, you'll know what I mean. And so I work on that. I get that done. Then I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, and then get that written up, and then we head into the studio, and usually we tape maybe 4 days out of a month and get done everything for the next month.
Wow.
So it's hard to put an exact time frame on it, but I would say, maybe 2.5 weeks is basically it.
Okay. And do you redo, like, when you do present Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, do you do new in-betweeners and things like that? Or, are you, I don't want to rip the curtain away, Wizard, and reveal all your secrets if not. But, how often do you freshen up old movies?
We do. Well, there's always at least one new segment, the male segment, in every show we do.
Okay, sure.
But again, with some of the stuff, it's like if the joke worked or the bit worked, I don't see any reason to replace it, and we'll leave it. But we do freshen up shows certainly as we go along. We'll redo opens and closes, especially. And, if there's something that's really dated, we'll take that out and do something new, because you hate to have something running where it's like, well, President Reagan said.
Sure. That's true. Well, and the great thing is with your costume, the look really hasn't changed. God, and I didn't even realize, Son of Svengoolie started in 1979. I mean, I'm sure there's been subtle changes here and there with the outfit and the wig. Is the wig still the original wig?
Actually, just recently, we got a new one, and it was funny because we did an appearance at Fantasy Costumes, very famous place here in Chicago, and I mentioned to them, I've been thinking of getting a new wig, and they said, well, let us help you out with that, and they came up with a great wig for me. The thing is, it was a little more voluminous than the old one, although it was exactly the way the old one was when it was brand new. So we actually have had to kind of, tone it down a little bit. One of the ways we do that, believe it or not, is to take like those dryer sheets and rub it on that. like bounce or something like that. Sure. And it actually takes it down and makes it a little more manageable.
Oh, man. See, now...
And for all you beauticians out there.
Rich, I was going to say, see, if I were on your writing staff, I would have been like, we've got to do a Rula Lenska, where you could do a before and after and show your, voluminous hair and before and after and everything before you distressed it.
Yeah. Yeah, there have been, little changes in the outfit. Back when I was at FLD, a lot of times I would just wear a T-shirt, and we had that awful 1970s green disco scarf.
Hilarious.
And I had a chain on my costume, and that chain actually came from a wall clock I had at home that looked like a pocket watch that I adapted to it. And when I came here to WCIU at first, I thought, well, let's update this. And here's where the brilliance comes in. I said, I know, I'll wear a red turtleneck. Under the hot lights, I'll wear a red turtleneck. Not the smartest move I ever made. So eventually we replaced it with a red tuxedo shirt.
Oh, that's hilarious. Sure.
That was a little more comfortable.
Sure. Absolutely. Oh, my God. That's amazing, man. Well, do we have time? Are we holding up a Teamster meeting or something in the conference room if we got a couple more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. I wanted to ask about your love of the Stooges because Stoogepalooza was another big show that you hosted for years. Also, Saturday Night Black and White, and we used to get to watch you do your great imitations of Jack Benny and some of the others on that. But tell me about your Stooge fascination.
I've loved the Stooges since I was a kid. We would go over to one of our relatives' house, and my old Italian great uncle loved to watch the Stooges. But my great aunt absolutely disliked them because she thought it was so terrible. She was very funny because she took it like it was for real. And when Mo would slap somebody, she'd be, oh, my God, that's just so terrible. And then when Mo would get hit by somebody else, she'd say, good for him, the big boss, good for him. And she really didn't want my uncle to watch it. But when we kids would be over, he'd say, hey, you want to watch the Stooges? And, of course, we said, sure. So he'd put them on. And that was his way of getting to watch it without blame because he could tell, hey, the kids want to watch it. What are we supposed to do? But loved them since I was a kid. And when I was at FLD, we had them for a while.
Sure.
And ran them late night, and I hosted that in one of the co-zone versions. And then when I came here, Neil Saban is also like a huge fan of the Three Stooges. He absolutely loves them and knows all the shorts. And eventually we got the rights to them. And that was where Stoogepalooza came from. We'd run like 5 of the shorts every week, and I'd try to come up with a theme each week. And sometimes it was a little bit of a stretch, but, what can you do? You can't make all those fit in. But we ran all 190 of them, and I'd find background material and do research so we could talk about what went on in the shorts and the different actors and, funny things that happened along the way in the filming of them. Absolutely loved it. And here's good news if you're a Stooge fan. Next month, we're going to be running the famous 1950 Stooge movie, Have Rocket Will Travel.
Excellent. The first one. That's their first movie.
Yeah. Exactly. And
their first feature after their syndication success, because obviously,
right after their shorts became such a big hit on TV, and finally they could make some money.
Yes.
After all that time. And the one that introduced Curly Joe Dorita, a hero to many, but, what could I say?
I wanted to ask about the other Third Stooges, because obviously we all love Larry. And I think as we become such Stooge fans, it's like, Shemp is awesome, and shame on us for maybe, not liking Shemp just because he wasn't Curly.
Sure.
And again, as you even get older, Larry, now the genius of Larry suddenly. I mean, Mo is a rock. I mean, Mo's the straight man. Mo's goofy when he needs to be, and you love Mo. My favorite line of Mo's was always in the one with Curly when they were about to rejoin the army, not realizing it, and Curly starts to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't think," and Mo says, "Every time you think, you weaken the nation." And it's just such a great Mo line.
That's a great line. Oh my God, yeah, I love that one too.
But yeah,
and another one.
Yeah.
There's a subtle little thing. They're about to do something and they're trying to figure out how to do it. And Larry says to Mo something like, "Well, do you think it'd be possible?" And Mo goes, "I don't think it'd be possible."
I do remember that. Well, and also then now it's all the weird stuff like the guy Joe, and I forget his last name, and I'm counting on you to know, fake Shemp.
Joe Palma.
Thank you, Joe Palma. Talk about Joe Palma for a second.
Yeah, after Shemp passed away, and this seems kind of creepy to me, they redid some of the shorts, and they'd add new footage into it. There were like 4 of them.
Yep.
And they needed somebody to fill in for Shemp. So this actor, Joe Palma, who shows up in some of the other shorts just as an actor, was Shemp. And, they'd shoot him from the back. And there were a couple times where he did the beep, 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 but it sounds terrible. You can tell this is not Shemp. But, that was their way of getting past, right after Shemp passed away before they could get Joe Besser in to be the third Stooge.
Yeah, and man, those Besser ones are just like weird curiosities in my personal opinion. They're rough. They're rough to get through. But I appreciate.
John, I have to tell you.
Go ahead.
I have to tell you, every time we'd run those, I would get so much hate mail. There was one guy who would send me emails. It was a full page of repeated over and over again. No Joe, no Joe, no Joe.
It doesn't surprise me, man. And now Antenna TV, one of the MeTV competitors out there, or maybe no, isn't that also a Weigel company?
No.
Oh, it's not.
Nope.
Okay, excuse me. But they're running Joey Bishop reruns, and I was too old or too young rather to see Joey Bishop. And now watching it because I interviewed Joe Besser for my high school radio station, and he wasn't the nicest guy.
Wow.
And yeah, it was. Honestly, I'm thrilled that I got to do it, and I wish I had held on to the cassette. But
sure.
But he wasn't the nicest guy, and it was funny because it was before the Stooges got their star. It was like 1980 or maybe 1981,
mm-hmm.
And he was really mean and really I did a lot of other things other than that year or so with the Stooges. I was on That Girl. I was on Joey Bishop's show. And I'm not even doing the voice.
Right.
But I was on Joey Bishop. So, but yeah.
Not so hard.
And yeah, man, I don't know. Even Stinky on Abbott and Costello, it was just like, I don't know, man. He just didn't do it. And certainly he was doing his own thing at the time that Larry and Mo were, doing classic Stooge. And it just, it was oil and water. I mean, and Joe Dorita certainly was softer than the others, unfortunately. But, he didn't get in the way of the bit the way that I thought Besser
No,
did.
exactly. And if you watch when we show Have Rocket Will Travel, we'll tell a little bit about the history of how he originally was asked to be a Stooge after Curly died and turned it down.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
If you tune in, if you tune in, I don't want to give it away now.
Sure, of course. No, we want to watch the show. Absolutely, man. That's really interesting. Well, and I've seen him, and I'm hoping that you will find some of these other films that he did. I mean, I know, he and Mo and Larry are in Four for Texas, a Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin movie with Anita Ekberg and also now Ursula Andrews. And they've got some funny moments in that. But I know there's some other Western that I stumbled on Turner Classic Movies where he was a judge or something like that, and just was a character.
Would that have been the Bravados with Gregory Peck?
I think it was the Bravados with Gregory Peck. That's nice, man. I kind of figured. That's great, man. Well, we're going to get a good dose of Joe DeRita. Is it going to really be a lot of in between stuff about Joe?
Oh yeah, we tell a lot about him and his career, and it's all fascinating to me how one of the things about the Stooges that amazes me is from the start of their career with Columbia to the end of it, they never got a raise. They got $60,000 every year to be divided 3 ways.
Wow.
And then, sure, we talk about back in the 30s, that was a lot of money, but as you go along and you realize, boy, they were there forever, and look at that. And, of course, when the shorts ran on TV, they didn't get any money out of that because there was no residual clause or anything. But that was when they could go out and make so much money just doing public appearances and, making these new movies and everything. So it kind of, was finally their chance to make some bigger money.
Yeah, and it is. It was thankful that at least in their last years they finally did get money comparable to what they put out there. And I saw that documentary. I'm wondering if you did, that Mo's son put together, and it was good. There was a lot of good information in there. I thought it was a little padded to be the 9-part documentary that it was, but there was really interesting information in there. And it's really sad that. Go ahead. Yeah, please tell me your thoughts on it.
And it being Mo's son too, there were times when it seemed like it was a little bit too much of how saintly Mo was, because there was certain information that was kind of like, yeah, okay, next.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't read any, if Mo wasn't, a great guy or anything like that. Is there?
Oh, no, he was okay, but like certain business things and things like that kind of were glossed over. And, I mean, hey, we all have our wrinkles, and
sure.
I don't want to cast asparagus on Mo.
I understand. But hey, are there beyond, unfortunately, it's all the family books of the Three Stooges scrapbook and, Mo's biography or autobiography that he wrote. And I know there was a Chicago guy, Jeff Forrester, who did like the Stooges Chronicles. I remember when I was in college in the 80s, an unauthorized book. And I remember the family being really mad about that too. Another guy that I got to talk to was Mo's son-in-law, Norman Maurer. And had I known then what I know now, I didn't know about his comic book career and working with Joe Kubert and being one of the main guys that created 3D comics in the 50s. That's very impressive.
Yeah, man.
No, absolutely.
Very impressive.
And I wish I had known that stuff. I spoke to him as Mo's son-in-law, the guy that produced their movies and, kind of ran their career in their last years. From a management standpoint and a producer standpoint.
Sure.
So I get a great conversation, really interesting stuff. Also, Edward Burns, one of the short.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and again, wish I knew more about Edward Burns because I would have asked him about working with the Bowery Boys and comparing that with his work with the Stooges and everything. Not only as a director, but as going back to being Frank Capra's sound man and being a big sound man at Columbia for years before they let him starting to direct.
Yeah. It's really a shame that, now, all these people are gone.
Yeah, man.
And, there's so many questions you have that nobody really can answer anymore because even most of the people who are around then are not with us anymore.
Agreed.
So it's a shame. It's a lot of incredibly fascinating information that we'll never know.
Yeah, and it is. You're right. And that's why I think we're still fascinated with, or will be, with the 20th century, because as opposed to today, where every movement is captured on video, there are chunks missing from, and certainly from the first half of the 20th century. But even going up to the 70s and 80s, where not everything was filmed or taped. And it's a shame that we can't talk to those people. So that's why it's I think it's good, and I try to do some comic history podcasts when I can as well, to talk to people who do know or who have the information and can set the record straight on things that are kind of ambiguous or left to speculation. So pretty neat.
Yeah, and I think that's important. You have to hear about this stuff from the past. The whole thing about people who ignore the past are going to have to experience it again. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Agreed. And yes, and where are you on the Blondie movies? Yay or nay?
Oh, I like the Blondie movies. I know they're kind of silly, but Arthur Lake, he always made me laugh. And and we used to run those when I was at WSLD.
Sure, I remember.
And we once did a parody. Remember, they used to have a little song that was built into the intros. Yes. That was done by the syndication people, and we did a takeoff on it when the movie Gandhi was big. We did Dagwood and Gandhi, and I always liked that bit.
See, for that alone, all right. Now you've gone up a notch. You've given me more credence to the Arthur Lake Blondie movies. All right, fair enough. Ma and Pa Kettle, of course, another great series of films.
Sure, yeah.
You're killing me, man. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation next week at C2E2, and I'll have more straight up questions. But this was like my attempt to kind of go into a few areas with you and promote the fact that you're coming on, and I can't wait to interview you live. And of course, every Saturday night, Svengoolie on Me TV. As I was reading in the listings, I thought it was going to either be The Creature Walks Among Us or Revenge of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. But you told me before we started recording that it was going to be something different.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was some confusion about when we have contracts for movies. There are certain, as they call them, windows of time when we're allowed to run the movie.
Oh, sure.
It's not like we can run them anytime we want. And there was some confusion about when we had those movies available, and because of that, they were not scheduled for when we thought they were. And we had to plug in something else. That's why we had to do a rerun of Ants last week. And this week, we've got Godzilla versus Monster Zero, and I don't think it's giving anything away to say that Monster Zero is actually Ghidra, the three-headed monster. So
fantastic.
It's a lot of fun. And we've got some great stuff coming up later this year. Of course, more Universal movies, some of the William Castle movies.
Hey, great.
And we mentioned The Blob. That's going to be coming up.
Cool.
And we're starting off April with Dinosaurus.
Is that one of the Corman recent?
No. This was actually, it was made by the same people who made The Blob.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was their follow-up movie where dinosaurs are pulled out of some bay in some South American island or something, and they end up falling out and creating havoc, as does a Neanderthal man who also is frozen there, which might not be scientifically correct, but, what am I going to do?
When you mentioned William Castle, I'm really glad because, God, that I recently saw from a year or two ago, maybe longer, a great William Castle documentary, and the poor man's Hitchcock in a really entertaining way, and also, of course, his great triumph getting the rights to Rosemary's Baby and hanging on tight and kind of telling Polanski in the studio, hey, if you want to make this, I'm involved, or you're not making it. And that's awesome that he finally got to do a great A-movie before he was done. But I have a very successful man. And, of course, parodied in Matinee with John Goodman.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, too. I always enjoy it. There's a great book that Castle wrote, something like, something about America, I'm going to scare the pants off you or something. And it's a great story of a lot of his life. It's really an enjoyable read and tells you so much about him.
Have you? Will you have the opportunity? I wonder if on the horror circuit, have you ever met his daughter?
I have not. No, I'd love to. That would certainly be somebody I could have a great conversation with.
Yeah, she's got good stories. Yeah, absolutely, man. I've seen her perform, and do things, and I think probably in service to that documentary that came out about her dad a few years ago. But Yeah, pretty cool, man. No, and I'm glad you had Victoria Price. I got to see her live show where she was at, the theater they used for Public Enemy, right at Six Corners. What am I thinking?
Oh, okay, yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, she's really nice. We've run into her a few times, and she's always been just a sweetheart. And again, talk about having great stories. She's terrific.
That's excellent. Well, it sounds like you got a great slate of stuff coming up. Did you say what's running instead this Saturday?
Yes, that was Godzilla versus Monsters Zero.
Of course you did. Excuse me. Yes, Toho finest.
All right.
Absolutely, man. That's great. And man. And then a week later, we'll be talking at C2E2 Saturday afternoon at 1:45. Check your local listings for the proper conference room. But I'll mention it in the wrap. But seriously, man, great chance to meet you and have this opportunity to talk. And really looking forward to talking to you face to face next Saturday.
Well, thank you, John, and same here. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, and just to let people know, I'm going to be signing 2 days this year. Usually I only do one. I'll be there Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. at table number 34, so I'm told, and then Saturday from noon to 1:30, we'll do an hour and a half signing, I think at the same table right before we do our panel. So please come out and see me. I do sign for free, but we oftentimes will have to limit people to just one per person, depending on how long the line is.
And they get long. So absolutely, man, if you're thinking about it, plan in advance. And it's worth the experience. It's really, man, a pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you. And again, congratulations on what you do and what you continue to do. Continue to do it as long as you want to. And you will have many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of viewers at this point.
Thank you, John. And let me just say, at this point in my life, it's nice to have a job.
Okay, so the plan was to obviously release what you just heard, and then follow up immediately with this fantastic panel. I knew we were going to have a great time at C2E2. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, the sound system kind of fought me. And I'm releasing this. I really tried with an equalizer to take out as much of the kind of background little interference. It's there. If you can handle it, I appreciate it. If you can't handle it, I totally get it. I don't blame you for bailing. We covered a lot of the same territory in the conversation that you just heard, but I really enjoyed his banter with the audience. We had such a great time, and I really wanted you to hear this full house that I knew was going to happen. He is beloved in Chicago, and as I said, I'm so glad that the rest of the country, through MeTV's syndication, has gotten hip to Svengoolie's act. And anyone who thinks, he's copying Mystery Science Theater 3000, wrong, or Joe Bob Briggs, or any of the other wise asses that show horror movies or make fun of movies, I'm telling you, man, 1979, 40 years ago, he was doing it and had started writing for his predecessor before that. So a genuine pleasure to have been honored to run Svengoolie's panel. I hope to do it again in the future. My plan is to hopefully see Rich in person and do a one-on-one with him at his offices at MeTV, the Svengoolie crypt, if you will. But if that doesn't happen, we'll certainly do it again on Skype. Whatever works for him, man. I have nothing but admiration and respect for the great Svengoolie. And again, don't forget, the DC one-shot is coming out from DC about Sven and the DC Universe. That should be hilarious. I can't wait to see what they cooked up for that. And that's going to be coming out this week. So let's all celebrate Svengoolie's anniversary with this live panel back in 2018 at C2E2, never before released on Word Balloon. And I appreciate you listening to it. Again, do your best with the little bit of interference in the background. But thank you again. Here's Sven and I from 2018 at C2E2.
I got the chicken, okay? It's here.
We need chicken wire like the Blues Brothers in case anyone's going to throw rubber chickens at us.
When we first came in, the lady gave us the beers free, so...
Are we good? Is there any... we got 2 minutes. Should we wait for stragglers? It looks like it's a full house. Okay. Or you want to go?
No, let's wait for stragglers.
All right, attaboy. See?
Let's wait for those.
There you go, man.
Lazy.
What's running tonight?
Tonight, excitement with a capital X. It's Dinosaurus. This movie was made by the same people that made The Blob. And they originally wanted Steve McQueen to be the star of it, but after having so much trouble with him in the Blob, they said, we don't want anything to do with him. So instead you get some guy named Ward something or other, not Ward Cleaver.
Oh, man.
And it's got stop motion dinosaurs and a caveman, and it's really pretty goofy. So
Outstanding. Oh, man. And we still got 2 minutes.
And now the straggler counts.
Exactly.
2 minutes.
Oh, we're on TV.
We should, every time a straggler walks in, go, finally.
Yeah, we're waiting. Exactly. Hilarious.
It's been nice today. Those of you who came in and came over for an autograph, thank you so much. It was nice of everybody to line up. And if somebody could just figure out how to drop the temperature down there, that would be great. Because, that might work, yes, but we need like another 6,000 of you doing that.
Spinning chickens.
Follow the spinning chickens.
All right, 60 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, 60 seconds.
It's very exciting, very tense.
How long ago we're on TV?
Huh?
No, but you are part of. I am recording this for the Word Balloon podcast.
Oh, cool.
So
Very
Sven and I Rich and I did a talk to promote this last week, and it's already on my podcast feed. So if you want to hear that discussion as well, but that's why I said I'm really glad you guys have questions, because we really want to give you a chance to talk to Rich and get some good stories from the man.
And when I don't know, I'll make up. So thanks.
All right, it's time. Let's begin. Excellent.
Stragglers.
Welcome. Welcome, stragglers. Thank you for coming. My name's John Suntress. I host a podcast called the Word Balloon Podcast, and I get to talk to very cool people of geek culture, including our guest today. And I've been such a fan for years, as I know we all have. We all grew up with this man, and it's great that he's still doing the wonderful stuff. We're really lucky in Chicago because we get local entertainment people. And, we come from that generation of Ray Rayner and Bozo and Garfield Goose, Fraser Thomas, and people like that. And thankfully, there is still a platform for this man to do what he does. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Svengoolie, Rich Coase.
I think John will remember me saying this. I was worried that, when I came up here to do this panel, we'd have 4 people and 2 of them would be janitors. So I really appreciate that all of you have come up here. It's nice to see everybody. It's overwhelming to me now, since we're on nationally, to hear from people all over the country who have actually gotten into the show. And when we come to events like this, it means a lot to me that everybody shows up. So thank you.
No question. Yeah. Rich, not to age us, but 1979 is when you took over the show.
It was in 1979 at a small FM station. Yeah, actually it was at WFLD, and that was after a year of kind of battling with them after they decided that I was going to be their horror host. Because at first, originally, my costume looked exactly like the original Svengoolie, Jerry G. Bishop, with the long green wig and a sweatshirt and everything. And they were like, well, that looks kind of like it's, too, I don't know about the green hair. So I changed it, and I changed the hair to brown and everything. They were still, well, it seems too, outdated, that sort of hippie thing like that. And so I went home and used the stuff that I just had of my own, a top hat. I bought the wig at Kmart, which is a whole other story I'll get to. And I had this double-breasted jacket I got that they were selling for like $10 each at like Sino or something like that. And I used to wear a chain, and that chain actually was the chain from a wall clock that looked like a stopwatch or a pocket watch. And I should tell the Kmart story. Yeah. All right. Theatrical wigs are very expensive. So I went to the Kmart. I thought, well, they have those women's wigs there, and they used to sell, they had a whole department of that, and a lot of them were like, $35, $40, something like that, which is a lot less than a theatrical wig. So I went in, and we went up, and I go up to the girl at the counter, and I said, okay, here's what's happening. I'm going to have a TV show, and I need a wig, a long wig, and I'm looking at it, I think that one might work. She says, okay, great. She says, yeah, we get a lot of gay guys coming in here to buy wigs.
Why
Why not?
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No.
But I said, no, really, I'm doing a TV show, and I said, it's going to premiere on such and such a date. If you watch, you'll see. I bought the wig and everything, and then, of course, naturally, it was delayed a month. So she tuned in on that day. She's going, But after we got the next costume that I had cobbled together, I walked into this program director's office and said, this is it. I think this will work. And he's looking at me like, well, I don't know. This was a program director who I always refer to as, the dead mackerel. Because you'd ask him a question and his expression would be... And no matter what the question was, he never had the answer right. It was always first at it. And so he's still doing I don't know, and I just said, you know what? This is it. This is what I'm going to wear. And he was like, oh, okay. And that was it. And finally we got everything together and hit the air in June of 1979. The first movie was in the year 2889. Does anybody know that movie?
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Exactly. It's terrible. It really is. But that was the beginning.
Well, and also your look, was it inspired by like Rocky Horror Picture Show or anything like that?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
Actually, it was all playing off Jerry's original look with the long hair and the circles around the eyes and mustache and beard. And then I just added, like I said, stuff I got at home.
Sure.
Stuff out of the trunk. And that was pretty much it.
That's awesome. You mentioned Jerry, and I'm sure older fans know too that there was, and of course originally Rich was the son of Svengoolie, because there was a Svengoolie before him, Jerry G. Bishop, who was again another Chicago, entertainment and reporter guy. You guys worked together in radio?
Yeah, Jerry was a guy born in Chicago. He ended up, as most people do, traveling around the country, working his way back to Chicago. And an incredibly talented man and very generous, because he was the one that decided I should be son of Svengoolie. He also was the one that decided I should just be Svengoolie when I came to WCIU. And he pretty much just turned the keys over to me, because he said, yeah, you can do this and it'll be great, and go ahead. And that really kind of blew me away, that he would be so generous with that. And everything I know, he's passed now, but he was very proud of what I'd done, and that means a lot to me.
Well, and you guys had that great, at the time, radio sensibility of sketches and parody songs, and you brought that to the television show. And of course, you wrote for Jerry before taking over the show as well. But I mean, it's that kind of like homemade entertainment that just you don't see anymore on television, and it's so great that now you've got this national platform. I mean, we've always been hip to how funny Rich is and everything and how great the show is. But now it really is delightful to watch celebrities and other people from all over the country say how great you are. And,
yeah, we just ran into Tom Kenny, SpongeBob. Yesterday, right before I was going out to autograph, I'm waiting behind the curtain there, and the celebrities are always going by in their little golf carts. It's like they're Bob Hope, ladies and gentlemen. And this golf cart's coming by, and there's like 4 people in it, and one guy in it all of a sudden yells, "Svengoolie, SpongeBob loves you." And I'm like, oh, that's good. And I'm thinking, wait, that's him.
Oh, that's good.
And today we finally met, and he was just so nice and very excited, and he's a big fan of the show. And every time I stumble on people like that, I'm just blown away, because it's like, here are these real professional people who are fans, and it's very cool.
Big geek icons. I mean, when I first did a video interview with Rich a couple of years ago, Joel Hodgson from Mystery Science Theater had to come over, shake your hand, say that you were an inspiration to him, which was amazing.
That was so cool. And it's just amazing to me that, these days we run into so many people who are fans of the show. And Mark Shepard from Supernatural, he was Crowley. He got in touch with me via Twitter and told me that he's a big fan of me TV and of my show. And we saw him for the first time yesterday, and the guys working with me will tell you, it's like it was as if we were old friends meeting, and we had a great conversation. We're going to see him later on too. And that's just so cool to me, because I'm still, a geek and a fan of all these people too, and for them to even know who I am means something.
You're at a Comic-Con. I should ask you, I'm sure you were a comic book reader when you were a kid as well.
Yes, definitely so. I still have in my basement a lot of the very early DC stuff from the early 60s. I have the very first appearance of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, the very first Poison Ivy.
Wow.
I have the issue of the Flash where Kid Flash gets his current uniform. I was always a big fan, Superman and Batman, and I remember when I was like junior high age, I drew a Batman comic and sent it to DC, not knowing how things work, of course. And about 2 months later, it was returned, and I opened it up, and I'm looking, and it's in there, and there's no letter or anything. And I was very confused at the time, not realizing that they don't take outside submissions, and especially ones from 13-year-old kids.
I understand Dan DiDio, the publisher, came and took a tour of the set.
Yeah, again, another guy. Last year at this very event, he was waiting in line, and we didn't even know who he was at the time. And here's publisher of DC Comics coming up here to talk to us, and he let us in on some cool information. In Mad Magazine number 2, Sergio, and I'm going to say his name wrong, Aragones.
That's how you say it.
Oh, good. See?
Yeah.
What do I win? Sergio Aragones has drawn me into some of the little
That's
side
awesome.
patterns, and they took a picture of me holding the number 1 issue that's on sale now, and that's going to be in that same issue of Mad.
That's excellent. My
It
God,
is.
that's iconic. Then again, one of the original cast of idiots of Mad Magazine that's still working for the magazine today.
And I'm a new idiot, so that all works out.
If you have questions, we've got the microphone here, and I really do want you to line up because we will lapse into conversation. So please take the opportunity. But while you're possibly lining up, I wanted to ask: when you do a movie, how long does it take from you deciding, all right, we're going to do this movie, to you coming up with the bits and making the 2-hour show?
Well, basically, we try to set up our schedule so that the whole year is all laid out. I work with our boss, and he tells us which movies we get from the distributors, and we lay out the whole schedule. And then, I would say usually about maybe 2 weeks before we get to a movie, I'll start screening it. And when I'm doing that, I take a lot of notes on it. I break it down into the various segments, try to figure it out for time even then if we need to take extra time out of it. And then in the meantime, we're also doing post-production on other shows. So it's like it's not full time working on that, but we get through that. I start thinking about what I'm going to do, and as far as the songs, I figure out one line maybe that will make sense with an old song. And Doug Sharp, who I went to high school with and who plays Doug Graves, I'll just call him and tell him what song we're doing and how much of it we're doing, and he makes the track. And then I figure out what the words are and plug them in. And we do one rehearsal of it right before we tape it, and then we put it on tape for the show. And then the rest of the time I'm just writing the rest of the bits and getting those together. And then once we finish shooting, it gets turned over to our editors, my director and editor, Chris Faulkner, and Jim Roach helps out with the editing as well. And we do the post-production stuff where we find the clips to put in and any other sound effects or whatever else we need. So it spans, it's hard to put it definitely just because we're working on various stuff from before and after.
Okay.
But within about 3 weeks, I say it comes together.
Wow. And I know he helps you with the music for the songs, but you write the bits and you're a one-man machine.
You can blame me.
Attaboy. No, that's amazing.
The only writer, and it's funny because when we tell the story of how I got involved with Jerry, I was just a fan of his, and I would send him material, and he liked it, and he found out I was a broadcasting student, and he said, why don't you come down to the station? And he found out I did voices, so he said, you can be this off-camera voice. And he always said to me, it's a good thing you came along when you did, because I had just about done everything I knew when you showed up and you provided all this material. And every time I tell that story, I have to do here's the facts of things. I don't need any help, thank you. Because I know a lot of people are always volunteering, and pretty much I've always written it myself, and I still have ideas, and at this point it's still kind of me doing it. So thank you so much for your interest, but
you're covered.
Yeah, we're covered.
We're covered.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Let's get some questions from the audience. Sir, please start.
Hi, Rich. I want to congratulate you on your syndication anniversary.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
love you. And the movie that I hated that you showed was that 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. Is there any movie that you kind of hated showing?
What of your own work have you hated, Rich?
Let me say, first of all, 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T was unusual. I mean, there were parts of it I liked and parts that I didn't, and there was a lot of it that some people didn't. One movie that I ran that I really didn't like much was Curse of the Swamp Creature. I can't remember the guy's name. Does anybody recall his name? He did a couple of those. Larry Buchanan, is it?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's not exactly one of my favorites, nor is it the favorite of that child. And another one that when I was at 32, they used to give me all the time was Track of the Vampire. Now, this movie was shot partially someplace like Romania and partially someplace in California, and neither side knew what the other one was doing, I think. And it was about an artist who was a vampire, and it had a long sequence with a girl dancing on the beach, and they used like one of those sort of fly vision lenses, so there's all these images of her. And it was absolutely awful, and I hated that movie. And yet the program director, he'd always bring me a list of movies. He'd put them on a tray on little Post-it notes and act like he was bringing me gold. And most of the time it was like, oh my God. So when he brought that to us one time, I talked with our film editor, the late Mike Smith, and I said, I can't stand that we're running this again. So we did a couple different things. During one part, there's a long part where a girl's being chased by the vampire guy. And eventually gets chased into the water. There's like a bald lifeguard there, and she's killed by the vampire. So we did a whole audio track where he was her swim coach, and she didn't want to go to swim practice. And it's all that we found this through there, but the sound effects and everything, and I made up all this dialogue. And eventually, when she's at the beach and in the water, the bald lifeguard became Curly from the Three Stooges. And it's like, oh, what's going on over there? And so we did that. And then there was another part where something ended, and when it hit the ending of it, this guy Mike Smith pulled, and the legality probably was not there then, but we'd really be going in a handbasket if we tried it now. He took all these clips from other movies and just linked them all together, and it must have gone on for 3 minutes. You know, at one point, here's Liberace in some movie saying, and I'm so glad to be here in Chicago. Then it cuts to Dean Martin going, Chicago? And it was just one clip after another. It was hilarious. And the thing was, shows you how much management cared. They never said a word about it. They never saw it. So, yeah, that was the movie that I think was among the most hated that I had.
Also, I wanted to ask you, are you ever planning to put any of the skits or movies on DVD?
We really aren't talking about it just because a lot of them involve the film clips. And Universal and some of the other distributors really will not allow us to do it because of their rights to it. And it would end up being a very expensive proposition for us to even get them. I'd love to, but I know people post all sorts of stuff. We never post anything on YouTube, but a lot of people post all sorts of old bits. So you can see a pretty large portion of my career on there.
Which is awesome, absolutely. Sir?
What's your favorite movie? What's your less favorite movie?
Well, I think we talked about less favorite there, probably. Those two, Curse of the Swamp Creature and Track of the Vampire. I don't have one favorite because I like different movies for different reasons. Obviously, I really like all those original Universal films. The Wolfman and Dracula. And one of my favorites really is Creature from the Black Lagoon. I always thought that was a very cool, and it really seemed so original to me because it wasn't, a legendary monster or, something created by a scientist or something. It was just this fossil that had lived on for years and years. So I'd say definitely Creature from the Black Lagoon is at the top of my favorites.
That's awesome. What did you think of Shape of Water?
Okay, I'm sorry to say, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh man!
Honestly, I
Wow.
know, I have too much other work.
I understand,
and I
you're
never
very
catch
busy.
up. Yeah, and we, especially the past few months, we've had a lot of stuff going on. I was hoping to finally catch up with it, but I will. And when I do, I'll come back here and I'll tell you.
I got the screener if you need it.
No, I think I have one from the
SAG?
SAG.
Yeah, me too, man. Okay, that's cool.
See, we get screeners of the various movies so that we can vote
for award season.
Yeah.
So.
Hi, Sven. I got two questions.
Yeah.
Where did the Sven vision came about? And when you did an episode of Son of Svengoolie where Jerry G. Bishop was a guest star, did you wish that he dressed up in full Svengoolie outfit?
Let's get the second one first. Yeah, it was nice. He just happened to be in town for something, and he came to visit. And I said, you want to do something on the show? He said, yeah, sure. The thing was, he didn't want to dress up in this stuff again. And actually, when he and I were working together at WMAQ Radio, and we were doing mornings, they actually, for publicity, they did a Svengoolie funeral so that it would kind of divorce him from the character. And it was really eerie because they had a dummy made up like him in a coffin. And it was a little bit like, ooh, you know. But yeah, he got to a point where he didn't want to wear it. And one of the reasons, which is also the reason why he decided I could be Son of Svengoolie, was he didn't want to dress up in the stuff again because he actually had, at the time, aspirations to maybe run for a political office.
Oh, wow.
And he thought, you know, whoever was running against him would hold up some picture of him as Svengoolie and go, "This is my opponent." So he really didn't want to go with that. And what was the first question again? Because my mind is like Swiss cheese.
Where did the Sven vision came about?
Sven's around?
Sven's around, sorry.
Yeah, actually that does go back to when Jerry was on, because there were certain nights when he was the staff announcer on duty and he was bored, and he and some of the engineers would take some of his sound effect cards and lay them into the movie. And I always thought that was very funny. And as far as myself, I always loved the Woody Allen What's Up Tiger Lily. And also SCTV did an episode of Cisco Kid where they redubbed the whole thing. And I always loved stuff like that, so that was what we did. There were times when we'd redo the voices, and other times we just add sound effects. That was really the basis for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Please don't. You can call me Sven, or you can call me Goolie, but he doesn't have to call me Johnson. Half the audience got that. That's good.
You have a lot of obscure movies that are very niche. You always need to have background information on the actor, behind the scenes. How do you get that information?
A combination of things. I actually caught up with the modern world, and I can use a computer. and I search out some of the facts, but I also have a huge library of books about movies. I've always been a real reader, and I always loved finding books about movies, and I have a whole collection at home, and I often will find a lot of the facts in there. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. One day I get an email, once we were national, I get an email and it says, "Hi, I'm Mark Hamill, and I really enjoy your show. When I was a kid, my father traveled around a lot with the military, so I saw all different horror hosts, and I see I really like what you do. Yours is among the very best, and it's very cool." And of course, I'm reading this, and it's like, that's very cool. And I'm thinking, but even myself, as a bottom feeder celebrity, there are people who pretend to be me. And I said, "This is very flattering," and I explained it. I said, "I wish I could know for sure that it's really you." And he said, "Okay, well, send me your phone number and I'll call you." And I'm thinking, and if it isn't him, and I'm sending the phone number? So I'm thinking about it, and I realized he had a verified Twitter account. And I said, "I tell you what, just post something on Twitter." And he said, "Okay, fine." So I'm waiting, I'm checking it. 1 hour goes by, nothing. 2 hours, nothing. 3 hours, nothing. And I'm going, yeah, that's Mark Hamill, sure, okay. Then all of a sudden, there's a post up from Mark that says, "One of the coolest things I discovered this summer was the Svengoolie show on MeTV." So that was it. Sent him my phone number. First time he called, we talked probably about 45 minutes. Just a terrific, real nice guy. He keeps saying, he hasn't gotten to Chicago in the time that we've known each other, but he keeps saying, someday we will meet. It is our destiny, which sounds very Jedi-like, and I'm hoping so. It'll be a lot of fun to meet him. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, Sven.
Hi.
Jumping off your Curly impression, my first introduction to the Three Stooges was you.
Oh.
And I just wanted to ask you can you talk about your love of the Three Stooges?
Stoogepalooza.
And also, I really like at the end, honestly, I haven't watched the show in a while, but I like...
Let me write that down. Along with the stragglers. No, it's okay.
I don't know if you still do this, but I like when you, at the end of your show, you would play that song from the Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah, that's still
Yeah, you still
We're
do?
the boys of the chorus.
Yeah.
Hope you like our show. We know you're rooting for us, but now we have to go. Yes, we do use that stuff. The Stooges. I always loved them when I was a kid. Another story, I'm telling family stories.
These are good stories, though, man.
Stuff you really appreciate. Yeah, it's family. Wow, great. We'd go over and see my great uncle and great aunt who raised my mom. My great uncle loved the Three Stooges, and my great aunt did not like him to watch them. And this is an old Italian couple, and my great aunt always thought it was real. So when Mo was slapping around Curly and hitting Larry, she's going, "Oh my God, he's just so mean. Oh, it's terrible." And then when one of them would do something that hit Mo or something, she'd go, "Good for him, the big boss. Good for him." But she didn't want my great uncle to watch the stuff, and so anytime we were over, that was his excuse. He'd say, "You kids that want to watch the Stooges?" And of course, we said, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Okay, we'll do that," and turn on. Then if she complained, he said, "Well, they wanted to watch it." But I always loved him, and then got the chance to host them, actually at 32 for a brief amount of time, late night. And then when I came to WCIU, and we were on, and after a while, my boss, Neil Saban, who was a huge fan of the Three Stooges, got the rights to them, and we did the Stoogepalooza show every week. We'd run 5 shorts. We'd try to find a theme, sometimes rather loosely based, and I'd find background information about it and talk about it, and I just loved it. I learned so much about them too, and I really missed doing it. Somebody else got the rights to them is what happened. They outbid us for rights, and my boss keeps trying to get them back, so maybe someday we'll get them back. I don't know if we'll have enough production time that I can host them, but I'll just be happy to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you ever have an interest? Because for some reason, the Stooges really do set apart. But the Bowery Boys or some of the other groups that were out there that were kind of doing similar stuff. There's just something about the Stooges.
Sure, yeah. It's funny because you see the Stooges the most. There were other ones. When I first watched them on Channel 9 here in Chicago, they also ran Andy Clyde shorts. And you don't see any resurgence of Andy Clyde for the most part. I think there's something about the Stooges shorts that really has held up after all these years. And speaking of the Stooges, I'll let you in on a little secret. In the middle of this month, we're going to be running Have Rocket Will Travel. We got the rights to show that. So it's older Stooges, and it's Curly Joe Dorita, but it was fun working on it, and I think you guys will like it.
Yeah, that's the first full length, as them as stars. They had made other feature films before that. Please, sir.
One thing I've always been curious about, on the original program, Jim Barton started as kind of just a typical announcer, but as the show went on, he became more wacky and lusting after Joey Luloff and all like that. I guess, how did that evolve? Or did he come to you, said he wanted to do more stuff, or?
No, actually, it's just Jim Barton was the staff announcer at Channel 32 for a while. Great guy, a lot of fun. And, we'd have him do little bits and pieces. And it's just because he was very funny. He did a great job with him. And eventually it was just the kind of thing like, oh, we could have Jim do this. Oh, we have Jim do that. And, he kind of enjoyed it. And there were little things that we just have in conversations. And I'd say, we should turn that into a bit. And we did. He was a fantastic guy. He still does freelance voice work. He lives out east now. And we always refer to him being there when Fox 32 was good. So, Actually, it was before it was Fox. I should take that back, because shortly after I was dismissed, he also kind of took his leave.
Wow.
Thank you.
Sure. It's nice to have somebody mention Jim Barton.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Now, that's what I was kind of counting on, the fact that there would be vets that have, go back to the old days and everything and really know their Sven history.
Hi, Sven. Hey, John.
Hey, man.
My question for you, Sven, I love the Stooges too. I know you've done a lot of research on them. Is there any particular fact that you unearthed in your research that really struck you as funny or strange about any of the Stooges?
Oh, one of the things that I always thought was very strange for their popularity was that during the 24 or 25 years that they worked for Columbia, they never got a raise. Every year, the Stooges were paid $60,000 to be divided among the three of them. Yeah, and it was finally when they released the shorts to TV in the 50s, and they became so popular that they could finally make some money doing public appearances and making the new movies and doing merchandising. So that always just absolutely amazed me that something like that could happen. But knowing the way some bosses work, I guess I can understand.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello there.
Hello.
My question to you, Sven, is, first and foremost, I'm a bit of a dummy in terms of how television production works, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people in here who are in the same boat as me, but not willing to admit it. I frequent the Facebook page a lot, and I see a lot of people suggesting all these sorts of wonderful movies, but the problem is some of these movies will run a little bit too longer for the time you're allotted.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how difficult is it to have a sort of special episode like you did with The Birds, when you premiered The Birds?
Right, yeah.
That was sort of like a double one. How difficult is it to try and have something like that as part of the schedule?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's pretty difficult just because of the program schedule. Back then, when we were local, it was easy enough for them to give us an extra half hour. But now, they're contracted to run these shows. So it's like, when we finish, they're contracted to run Batman, the 2 episodes of Batman, and after that, run Star Trek. So we can't really do that. And people ask about movies all the time. There are some that are long, and, I feel bad trying to edit them down, because I don't want to take that much out of it. I have to say, anytime I have to edit the movies, most of the time I really don't want to do it because I hate to take stuff out. And Chris Faulkner and I work very hard to take little bits and pieces here. There are times when we do edits literally that are 7 seconds, 8 seconds, just so that we don't lose any plot or anything really important to the movie. So it's extra work for us, but we're trying to maintain, the dignity, such as it is, of the movie, and make it work. And another thing about, people always ask, well, why can't you get them, and why can't you? The reason is that there's a lot of competition these days, and with all the other networks and such, they are constantly trying to outbid us on things, and some of them, I think, are a little jealous of our success as well. And they try to, outbid and get these, and some of them are under exclusive contracts to other people, so we can't run them because of that. And, there's other stuff, we can try to wait until they finally get out of the contract or whatever. But that's the reason why, people say, why don't you show more of this or that? And it's like, it's hard to get the stuff. And the stuff that we do get is pretty expensive, actually. I know those of you saying the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T was expensive. But yeah, it's not as easy to get movies as it was when I was first doing this show.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, who came in? See, that's a Stooges thing, yeah.
First, I'd like to say thank you very much, Sven, for being with the Chicago area for a long time. As a young fan, I greatly appreciate your work. And I definitely know some older fans who love your work all the same, too. My question is that, are there any segments from the past that you've retired that you've ever considered bringing back?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know that there's anything that we really decided not to do anymore. We're limited sometimes in doing the Sven Surround stuff just because of the production time that it takes. Even to do like a 2 or 3 minute bit like that takes a lot of production time that we sometimes don't even have. I have to say that there's one thing that we've gotten kind of out of our system when we went national is mentioning local things and doing jokes about local personalities or events, because obviously now to a national audience. Now, I think to some extent people understand certain things. For example, Berwyn. Where have I heard that before? A lot of people have said, and some people even in our management have said, well, I don't know that people get that. And I think that from my emails that I get from around the country, people do get it. And also, it's kind of like, I've always said, David Letterman did a show in New York, and he referred to New York stuff, and the audience got it. So I think that they get most of that type of stuff.
Johnny Carson, beautiful downtown Burbank and stuff. And also, Berwyn's just a funny word.
It is, And there are certain parts of the country where there are other Berwyns, and I know there are. Oh my God! And in some places they pronounce it, which I think must be like a Gaelic or something. They call it Berwyn. And as we all know, that's wrong.
It's wrong.
But yeah, right offhand, I can't think of any kind of bit that we just said, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sven.
Hi.
2 questions. Just a favorite bit of trivia that you found out reading or viewing movies over the years. And do you consider when you retire in 20, 30, 40 years that your character is a legacy character for another actor or performer?
Sven the Third.
I don't know. We've talked about that certainly at work. And the nice thing is that they've kind of given me the feeling that I can do this as long as I want to and as long as I'm able to do it, which is nice. That applause is for the management of Weigel Broadcasting. As far as trivia stuff, boy, there's so much that I've run into. One thing that I always thought was cool is we ran a movie, what is it? The Land Unknown, I think, where the helicopter is in the Arctic and goes down, into this pothole, I don't know what you call it. But it's a tropical paradise with, prehistoric beasts.
Oh, like Hollow Earth kind of thing, yeah.
And I found out that the T-Rex in it, they use the head for Spot in the Munsters when the thing opens up and he breathes the flames. I thought that was cool.
That is awesome. That's fantastic.
Thanks, Ben. I'm a very big fan.
Thank you.
My question is, how do you choose the next movie to do? Is it like randomized, or is there like a certain time frame you have to choose from?
Yeah, well, most of the time, when we get the movies from a distributor, they give us what we call a window of time where we can run it. They are very specific on if you can just run it even on a certain date or during a certain month. And what we do, as I said earlier, is we really plan out the whole year ahead of time so that we know everything that's coming up. And we choose from the lists that they give us, and we have to abide by their windows of time when we are allowed to run the movies.
And you've got like perennials like the Universal films, obviously those show. And you mentioned to me in our podcast, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, you're going to probably show that every year, right?
Sure, yeah. There's a bunch of Universal movies that we bring back just because they're classics and because people want to see them. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is one of the most requested movies we have. And there are people who are like, oh, Abbott and Costello is not horror. And it's like, yeah, okay. I think whenever we do something that's got comedy, Ghost and Mr. Chicken, people love that movie.
It's an amazing
And yet
movie.
there are people who complain, oh, it's comedic. It should not be on a scary movie. And even now, we've gotten complaints, we moved the time to earlier. And there are people who were just so up in arms because, scary movies are supposed to be seen in the dark. And it's like, pull your shades down. It's funny, or you record it and watch it later. And it's the whole thing is, I used to be on, Saturday afternoons.
Yes,
And,
yeah, absolutely.
So if you're not supposed to show them then, I guess I was in violation of the horror code. And I've learned, no matter what I do, there's people who don't like certain things, and I've had to live with that. You can't make everybody happy, so I'm making people unhappy even as I speak.
Hello, Senator.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I like your shirt. It's very nice.
Oh, thank you. That's a nice green color.
You know, yeah, exactly. And you know, when it's been so cold outside, it's nice to see some green like that.
Well, you know,
Don't you agree?
It's has been dressed as random PI Chicago style.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Good thinking.
Also, if you have a chance and they have the Rodin exhibit at the Art Institute, don't go. I was very disappointed. There was no giant monsters at all. Finally, the question.
That one was a
Wow, man.
You stepped on my joke. I was going to say, now that was a thinker. Rodin. No.
I get it.
I was going to ask you about passing on the keys to the gentleman in front of you. Did that already.
Yeah.
I hope that, like Dr. Who, that you also might consider go changing to maybe along with female Svengoolie. That would be kind of interesting.
I'd have to go to Sweden for that, wouldn't I? No. I don't know. You know, that's just it. We don't know. We've talked about that maybe somebody else would follow me if they want to continue showing horror movies on the network. But we don't know yet. That's just it. I mean, I'd be more than happy to help them find somebody else or to, give them an idea of what a character would be. I think if they were to take somebody else, kind of like they did with Bozo, it's like Bob Bell Bozo, and now it's
Joey
Dioria Bozo. I think if somebody else were to be Svengoolie, I think that a lot of people would not take to that well, because after all these years of seeing me doing it, it just wouldn't be the same. I'm sorry?
Play till you die.
Play till I die. Let's hope that doesn't happen
Yeah,
here.
really.
I know you do some extra stuff like for the old time radio. Those days. Has old time radio also inspired you with your program?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there are so many things that have inspired me with my program. Early on in my career, I actually wrote with Dick Orkin. You people know him. He did the Chicken Man series. And it was like a dream come true, because I started listening to his stuff, and then maybe 10 years later, here I was writing Chicken Man episodes with him and doing voices in them. And that was kind of a later offshoot of old-time radio, because we did it the same way that they did the old radio shows, even though they were just shorter episodes. Yeah, I put my hand to my ear. And then listening to that, some of that stuff was so well written. You can listen to some of the Jack Benny shows from back then, and it's so sharp. And the thing I love about that is they'll set up a joke and do the joke, and then a couple things will go by, and then they'll call back to that joke. And it's just such wonderful writing that we really enjoy it.
I always love hearing your Stan Freberg drops as well. There's another audio genius like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, great comedy stuff.
Hey, Sven.
Hello.
So my favorite bits on the show are when you return from commercial break, and you have these convoluted...
Stragglers exiting.
I'm sorry. Like these, sometimes very sharp, and sometimes, oh my gosh, groan-inducing ways to get back into the movie. So my question is, do you watch the movie and say, oh, there's a good joke, or do they edit the movie for you, and then you have to make up a joke to go back into where it was?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm the one that is cutting down and creating the segments. So a lot of times I will find something that I think will be a perfect setup. And there are times when I don't even know what the setup's going to be, but it seems like this will work for Joe. So yeah, we try to do that so that there's that added entertainment factor to it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Hi, Rich. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
I grew up watching the Cozone weekdays afternoons.
Cozone, absolutely, man. Weekday afternoons.
There's a movie I've been looking for a really long time. I saw a long time ago. Came up on 1984. It's called Area 14.
Yeah, it had, I think, Richard Benjamin.
Yeah, that's right.
And, it was a takeoff on the Friday the 13th series. Yeah, I have seen it. We've never been offered it by any distributor. I do remember that. It was a nice parody. There's a bunch of funny parody stuff. We ran, when we were first on, we ran Transylvania 65000, which was a fun movie.
Yeah.
And
Haunted Honeymoon, I remember.
Haunted Honeymoon, yeah. I don't think we ever ran that, but
Dom DeLuise, right?
Dom DeLuise and
yeah, I'm blanket too.
Gilda Radner.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Gene Wilder, right?
Right. Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Shame on us.
Yeah. So, if we ever had it, I'd probably love to show it. But as I said, some of these movies are so hard to get. And then we've noticed also there are certain titles that used to be available that just are not available anymore. And we don't know why that is. So, I don't know. Sometimes things get tied up, legally with different distributors and such. But, yeah, as I said, it's much harder to get movies these days. But we try.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, son. My name is Brian. How are you?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I just wanted to say that I am a huge fan of your show. I grew up watching it since I was 6 years old because of my dad. And it's just amazing being here in front of you.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's one of the cool things. And today I had a lot of examples of this. People coming and they were getting autographs for their parents. And they said, we always watch the show together. And I've told this story a million times, and for those of you who've heard it before, I'm sorry. But I have people come up to me and they say, I used to watch you when I was a kid, and I watch you with my kids. And I think that's a big compliment. And how many shows are there that whole families get together to watch these days? So it's just very cool that happens.
My dad told me about this show called Svengoolie when I was 6. Because I love old monster movies. My dad, he got me into all these movies. And one day he put on the show and he said, "Well, Steve, what do you think of that?" And I said, "He's funny. I love him." and I'm like, "Why do they throw over chickens at him? That's me." Oh, and here's a question. How many rubber chickens do you have in the shop?
Oh, I can't even count that. We have, I would say we have a big, sort of Rubbermaid container that has maybe, I'd say between 30 and 40. Boy, we're boring them here. Hey, the dancing girls are coming up in a moment. That's why.
That's right.
We have probably about, maybe around 40 on a regular basis. We have the screaming ones, which people delight in squeezing and then throwing at me, and you hear that as it goes flying through the air. I should explain what the rubber chicken business is here. When Jerry was doing this show, that was where it first started, with the rubber chickens being thrown at him. And the reason was, going back to the old vaudeville days, when people told a bad joke or their act wasn't going over, the audience would be disgruntled and would throw, rotten vegetables or tomatoes or something at them. Now, obviously, you can't do that in TV because we don't have the budgets to clean the set every time. And he thought, well, here's this other comedy prop, the rubber chicken, which has been around, since vaudeville and maybe even before. Why don't we just have people throw rubber chickens? And that way, nothing will be injured except me. And he had that tradition, and I continued with it.
That's so cool. And this may sound a little weird, but can I have a hug?
Sure. Come on. Where are the good-looking women who should... yes. Goodness, I love these guys. Thanks.
That's awesome, right?
Oh, yeah, right. Very good.
Very cool, man. You were telling me on the podcast last week that you've become a connoisseur of the quality of rubber chickens. And
yes.
what country makes the best rubber chickens?
I've learned so much about the various types of rubber chickens. The best ones to sign have a smooth surface, and naturally people bring me the ones that have a lot of bumps on them, so I have to try to negotiate around those. Those are the hardest. The best rubber chickens used to come from Italy. I don't know why. And you don't see those anymore, and I wonder if they, Parmesan them or something like that. But I do have some news. There's going to be, you've heard of the Archer McPhee company that's out in Seattle that sells all sorts of novelty type stuff. They're actually going to have a rubber chicken museum. And actually, I'm going to be in it. I signed a rubber chicken for them, and they're going to have my picture in there. So could there be a higher honor? I think not.
Will there be a... Will there be a Svengoolie wing at the chicken? Thank you. You can throw it. Feel free to throw rubber chickens at me at your convenience.
I don't know if we can get a leg up on that, but
hey now,
I'll take it abreast and try to.
Exactly.
Hello, big fan.
Thank you.
First saw the 1990s Captain America on your show.
Oh, yes.
Good one.
Yes.
And just the fact that you do show so many obscure movies, for instance, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's first movie was Hercules in New York.
Sure.
A bit of a stretch to call that a movie, but anyway, I was wondering if there was a favorite instance of that, where there's an older movie where it stars someone who became really famous later on.
Wow, I'd have to think about that. Right offhand, I can't pull that out. Other than maybe the Clint Eastwood appearances in some of the stuff, like in Revenge of the Creature, where he's the wacky, laboratory guy who's lost a rat, and it's in his pocket. That's the best example I can think of right
I think
offhand.
Kevin Costner, I want to say, did a Trauma movie before he
I think
got
that's
going.
right, yeah.
And it was, and I can't even remember the title of it, but I know Beach is in the title. But yeah, I know Costner did a Trauma.
Oh, I wish I could remember. Something about Zombie Beach? No?
I don't. Or was he in Surf Nazis Must Die?
No, I
Is
don't
that
think
possible?
so. I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right. How much Trauma have you shown? Toxic
For a
Avenger?
while, we had a handful of them that we did run, and we had to edit them so severely. There was so much in them. Toxic Avenger, boy, get the meat cleaver ready. We had to really take a lot out of it. And we had a bunch of Nukem High we had.
Yes.
A couple other ones, too. Sergeant Kabuki Man. There were various ones we had. And we had them for a short time. And I just remember once they said, we'll shoot some stuff with you with the guys in Trauma stuff. And it's okay. So it was a guy as Kabuki Man and somebody wearing a Toxic Avenger mask. And we sent them, lines to read. So the Toxie guy is reading the stuff and he says, this doesn't make sense. You people in Chicago don't know how to write. And I was like, okay, that's it. Thank you.
The Orson Welles of Trauma, clearly. Wow.
Thank you.
Hi, Svengoolie, big fan.
Thank you.
I saw you last year at the Rockford MightyCon.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I want to tell you, my favorite bit is when you do a movie like The Tarantulas, The Deadly Cargo, and you did the bit from Larry on The Three Stooges.
I know.
It's a tarantula.
Yeah.
The violin, and the guy that wig is on the end of the thing, and they shoot at it.
Yes. We use any excuse we can to use that because, first of all, that is one of the 4 Stooge shorts that's in public domain, so it's not like we have to have rights to it. But anytime there's a spider like that, we try the tarantula.
And also, I know you show a lot of Abbott and Costello movies.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to start showing more Three Stooges?
Well, we've got that one, and that was all that we got from Sony Columbia right now, but as time goes on, we may be able to get some other ones. And obviously, we want to kind of keep it still in genre, so I think there's Around the World in a Daze that could be sort of science fiction-y.
And In Orbit, I want to say, had the Frankenstein kind of looking aliens.
Yeah,
Three Stooges in
so,
Orbit.
Yeah, there might be more we can get, but for right now, the one we've got is Have Rocket Will Travel.
Didn't Mo, right before, one of his last movies, didn't he do a horror movie where he was like a cab driver or something?
Yeah.
And I can't
think of the name either, but he had just a bit part in it.
Yeah.
And you can go to Google.
There you go, exactly. IMDb, of course.
Yeah, I've been a lifelong fan of Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges, and my grandpa, he's a big fan of the Marx Brothers.
I was a huge Marx Brothers fan. Groucho was a huge influence on me.
Yeah.
Would you ever show the Martin and Lewis movie, that Scared Stiff?
If we could get it, definitely, yeah. We ran the Bob Hope version.
Ghost Breakers?
Yes, Ghost Breakers.
Yeah.
We ran that. And yeah, I'd love to. But again, we haven't really gotten too much contract stuff because that was Paramount, I believe.
Okay.
And we haven't always been able to get Paramount movies.
Did I see the 10-minute sign? Is that what I saw? For people who are holding up the signs? Oh, now they disappeared. They must have walked out with the stragglers. That's all right. I really want to make sure everyone gets a chance to ask a question. So yeah.
See you, Sven. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Don't quit on it.
I'll try not to.
A pirate.
Hi, Sven.
Hi.
I've been an original fan. It really made your signed photograph is in the front of my classroom for my art class.
Oh, that's nice.
But I've always wondered since the very beginning, how did you come up with Sven's persona? How did that look come about?
Well, it was based on Jerry's look originally. And like I said, I just added some stuff to it when they wanted the changes.
But he goes straight there, no hat. Yours is so original.
Yeah, well, like I said, I just happen to have a hat. and then, of course, think about, the old Creature features, that picture of Lon Chaney Sr. with the top hat. And, it seemed like it might be appropriate. So that's basically it.
Big fan.
Thank you.
Were there overlap years where you guys were doing your show and Creature Features was also
when Jerry was on?
Okay, yeah, 70s.
You're right.
Early
He
70s.
was on Friday nights, and then Creature Features was on the weekend. And
Yeah.
And at first they had all the Universal stuff,
yeah.
and he really couldn't get that, so he ran some real choice stuff.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I have a question about a movie that will probably never be on Svengoolie, but is gloriously awful.
Okay.
Have you ever seen The Room?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, The Room. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. It's on my list right after Shape of Water.
I'm sorry?
It's on my list right after Shape of Water.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tommy was out. I mean, if vampires really existed, he's probably an actual vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Just not the way it looks, but just his social cluelessness, as if he's from another time.
Yeah.
But since you haven't seen it, I just thought that other gentlemen talked about extended episodes. Perhaps have you thought about possibly having a Patreon for people who kind of give money to see special extended episodes for people who are part of an online fan club, or perhaps donors bonus content?
Well, no, actually, because that's not how our company works.
Okay.
We don't do that kind of stuff. It's lovely that people would think of it, but it's not something we do.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, big fan. I was wondering if there's a movie that you weren't able to show because you didn't have the rights, or it's too long or something. Is there a favorite movie or something that you just weren't able to show?
There is a movie that we've been trying to get for years and years. And I'm blanking out on the title. Oh, no. Give me a second now. Fiend Without a Face.
Oh, that's a good one. Sure.
I love that movie. It's so bizarre and so goofy. And my bosses have been working to trying to get it. I don't know if we will, but they are laboring mightily to get it. Do you guys know that movie?
Yeah.
Yes, it's The Invisible Menace. And then when they're finally revealed, it's brains with a spinal column, and they inch along like caterpillars, and they can also fly through the air, and then they shoot at them, and when they shoot at them it sounds like a whoopee cushion, and there's raspberry jam that comes out of it.
Ew.
That is cinema.
We've got 5 minutes and 5 people, so I really want a lightning round and get everyone in there before we finish.
Sven, can I pay with a personal check?
No, you cannot.
Are there any memorable reactions from people that were in the movie you featured that saw when you featured them?
I don't think we've ever had much reaction from anybody. Many of them are dead, which is a good thing. We can't get a reaction. Sure. But, for the most part, I don't think we've ever heard from anybody who was in the movies. We have heard sometimes from people who were involved in it, but were not on camera in it. And there was one movie we had with, I think, Corey Feldman years ago. And the guys that wrote it just wrote and said, we never got to see that because that was before we were on in the network. And they said, we'd sure like to see it. I don't think we even have the tape of it anymore.
My name is Lorraine, and what made you want to come to Svengoolie?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, mainly it was because I wanted to do comedy stuff. And when I got involved with the original Svengoolie, Jerry G. Bishop, that was an outlet to do that kind of thing. And that's really what it turned into, a way for me to do, funny stuff, hopefully, on TV. And I also loved horror movies, so the two together were the reason why I did it. Cool. Thank you.
All right, 3 more. Let's get them in.
Hello, Svengoolie.
Hello.
Mr. Rose, good to see you again. I'd say first off, as a fan, I really appreciate that you offer your signature for free, for fans to come by and talk about
sure.
cards and memorabilia. That's great. And second, your whole career has been showing bad movies, obscure movies, crazy movies. Is there a crazy movie in your head that you wish you would like to get out, that you yourself would like to make today?
You know, if I had time to write one, yeah. But that's just that people always say, you know, why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book? And it's like, I just don't have the time with everything that I have to do now. It would almost have to be something, you know, close to my retirement or something like that. I mean, yeah, it'd be great because Elvira's made a couple movies, obviously. And it'd be great to do a big screen thing, but also you have to have somebody who will back that. And again, I'd have to have the time to write it. And right now, I just don't.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two more.
Hi, Sven. You built quite a legacy in Chicago. What did you imagine you'd be doing when you were a kid for a job? And what do you think was the best step in your career to get you where you are now?
Well, first of all, I always thought that I'd be maybe a cartoonist because I like to draw and I love comic books. And I thought that maybe that was going to be it, that I'd end up being a cartoonist. And I incorporate some of that into the show every so often. The real move that brought me closer was when I was in high school. We had a high school FM station, a radio station. And I thought, this is a real radio station? You can be on that? And so I went and auditioned and got onto that. And obviously that was my first taste of stuff. And I was on the air doing, you know, goofy shtick stuff in between playing the hits of the day. And that was, I think, what first set me on this path, because it was like, I'm having fun doing this. People are reacting to it well. So it's like, you know, the idea that, wow, you can actually have a career doing this. I had never even thought about that until I got involved with that high school radio station, WMTH in Park Ridge, Illinois.
Maine Township.
That's right. Yes.
I know it.
You
Absolutely.
know it, sure.
Hi guys, I'm Mr. Post. I have to say that just because my mother previously met you back a few years ago when you had a health scare, and she was your phlebotomist, and she does keep you in her prayers every day, all of her patients, including you. And do you want me to tell you that? That she keeps you in her prayers every single day.
Well, you thank her for me, because seriously.
Yeah, because she, you know, you were a really good patient. She wanted to remind you of that. I think for people that don't know, phlebotomists, the people who draw blood, no one likes that. So she's like, thank you for being a good patient.
Oh.
No. But I will say, you're probably the reason why we ended up in Berwyn. That's how much of an effect you had on my family that, you know, the entire family watches you, and that includes the Japanese movies. My question to you was, you mentioned that Creature of the Black Lagoon is probably your favorite American monster. What is your favorite Japanese monster?
That's a good one.
Oh, I have to say it's probably Godzilla. Either that or Matango, the Mushroom of Death. I always loved that one too. But yeah, Godzilla, and to watch the different change that went through from being a truly fearsome monster to being the sort of comical one that does pro wrestling moves. And look, I mean, all these years, still around. And still, you know, they're still making Godzilla movies. So it's very impressive.
Thank you so much.
Thank your mom for me, please.
That's great. You know, I'm glad she mentioned you've had a couple health, you know, concerns recently, and I'm glad. Obviously, you know, you're on the mend and you're here with us, so that's clearly a good sign. You're doing okay?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. I had my first heart attack 2 weeks after my 50th birthday, and it was like a blockage, 95% blockage, and they put in a stent. And then 10 years later, I had a cardiac arrest, and I was dead. And they had to use the paddles twice to bring me back. I was in I guess you'd call it a coma for about 5 days. They had to lower my body temperature to protect, you know, my body. And I've been told that only 7% of people that have one of those survive. So I'm very, very lucky. And, you know, the medical people who managed to pull me through, I mean, you know, how do you thank somebody for that?
Yeah.
So I'm lucky to be here. And I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Because, quite honestly, most TV stations don't do this kind of stuff anymore.
That's right.
And I'm fortunate that our bosses felt it was part of the sort of memorable TV that people enjoy and the hosted stuff that people like. And that, you know, I'm in the right place and I have, you know, management who actually appreciates what I do, which has not been the case a lot of the time where various places that I worked. And I feel very fortunate to be where I am. And now, you know, to be on nationally, I never thought that would happen. I didn't think I'd still be doing this job this far in. So it all means a lot to me, and I'm very proud of what I've done, but also very grateful. And I'm grateful to all of you who have supported me all this time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're one of the best at what you do, man, and we're really glad you're still doing it, and I'm glad that you have this national platforms as well. We're out of time. Thanks a lot for coming. If you like this conversation, I hope you listen to wordballoon.com and listen to my other conversation with Rich and other great guests as well. But thank you for coming. Another hand, please, for Rich Coase. Svengoolie, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Dude, my pleasure, man. Absolutely.
Rich Coase, the great Svengoolie. Happy anniversary, Rich. Well-deserved. So glad that you're still a fixture of Chicago television, and now nationwide, everyone knows your name. Again, check out the DC Svengoolie one-shot that's coming out this week, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Weird Balloon. We're still going to have a couple more conversations before Halloween, and I hope you'll enjoy them, and they're certainly horror-related. So look forward to those and other great conversations as well. Man, rolling right into November. So many things lined up already for throughout the end of October and into November. It's going to be a great month coming up, and we're going to wrap things up with a bang as well. October's been a great month, man. Lots of great stuff. I hope you've enjoyed the new conversations and the old ones that I've brought back for this month on Word Balloon. Again, all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners via Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon, or, of course, you can go to wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. Thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners, through your subscriptions via Patreon. Word Balloon also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. That, man, they're closing out October, and really, if you think about what they put out in October, it's a hell of a collection. The first issue of Shoplifters will be liquidated. Think of Judge Dredd combined with Amazon. Have you seen those Amazon commercials, Lily, about how great it is to work at Amazon? I don't know. Stronghold, Volume 1, Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly, hoping to talk to Phil in the very near future, because he's got some great stuff. Also, the second issue of Matthew Klickstein's You Are Obsolete came out this month. You've got Marguerite Bennett's Animosity, number 24, Juan Doe's Bad Reception, number 3, Tim Seeley's Dark Red, number 7, Dark Ark is back, Cullen Bunn and Juan Doe, After the Flood, really neat stuff there. Marguerite Bennett's wonderful graphic novel, Horde, which I hope to be talking to her about very soon. Garth Ennis and Russ Brown's Jimmy's Bastard, the complete collection. And, of course, Killer Groove, wrapped up from Owen Masters, a great compliment to his Vertigo series, The Kitchen. I still want to see that movie. I know it got mixed reviews, but it looked pretty strong, and I still kind of want to see it. So I'm going to have to check that out digitally. But anyway, great stuff from Aftershock. We talk about it all the time. They're one of my sponsors, and it's been a year of Aftershock sponsorship here at Word Balloon, and I can't thank them enough for their support and encouragement. It's a great relationship, and I'm proud to represent the Aftershock brand. Check it out for yourself. You'll find the stories you're looking for if you go to their website. Full story descriptions, preview pages of art, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening to this Halloween Weird Balloon. And we've got more coming up before the 31st. So stay tuned. Some big names crossing the plate to close out October and usher in November before we're done here at wordballoon.com. I look forward to sharing these conversations with you. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.